Oh, those are the agenda, those are the file numbers.
No, I know, but it is following a different person.
This time I'll call to order the June 6, 2024 meeting of the Clearwater City Council. If any of you in attendance tonight wish to speak, we do have comment cards, signature, sign-in cards at the door and at the clerk's table up here at the dais. We'd appreciate you filling out one of those cards so we know who you are, and we can reach out to you afterwards in case one of the council members wants to speak with you about an issue that you raised or spoke with about tonight. This time we'll move to item 2 on the agenda. If you would all stand at this time, we're pleased to have Father Bob Swick from St. Francis Assisi here, and then please remain standing after the prayer for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening. And let us pray. Heavenly Father and ever-loving God, thank you for the gift of these devoted leaders of our city. Enable them to act with character and conviction, to listen with understanding and goodwill, and to speak with charity and restraint. Give our community leaders, we pray, a continuing spirit of service. Remind them always that they are stewards of your authority. And we ask you that you renew within them the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. And so, Father, recognizing your servant, St. Francis of Assisi, we pray that you make us all a channel of your peace. Where there's hatred, let us bring your love. When there's injury, your pardon, Lord. And when there's doubt, true love in you. Amen.
Thank you, Father Swick. At this time, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, special recognitions and presentations. In item 4.1, I'd like to call forward Florida League of Mayors Executive Director Scott Dudley. If Mr. Dudley's here. Looks like he may be delayed, so if council, pledge of council, I'll take him out of order if he gets here again shortly. We'll move to item 4.2 on the agenda, homeownership proclamation, and I'd like to call forward Chuck Lane from Economic Development and Housing. Whereas the importance of home ownership in American society impacts neighborhood stability and the nation's economic health, and whereas the City of Clearwater is committed to preserve and increase the level of home ownership in the city and participates in HUD's Home Investment Partnership and Community Development Block Grant programs to support initiatives such as home ownership counseling, purchase assistance, new construction, rehabilitation of its existing housing stock, and affordable lower-cost housing. And whereas the City of Clearwater also commends the efforts of our community's private sector, its developers, lenders, realtors, and nonprofit organizations, all of whom are committed to keep families in their homes and to promoting the American dream to new homeowners in the City of Clearwater. And whereas the Economic Development and Housing Department of the City of Clearwater and its community partners are participating in the free 33rd Annual Home Ownership of People Everywhere, HOPE Expo, on June 8, 2024, to encourage citizens to meet and speak to housing counselors, lenders, real estate agents, and community resource representatives regarding home ownership. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2024 to be National Homeownership Month in Clearwater.
Thank you. Just a couple of introductions, if I may. I'm Chuck Lane, Economic Development Housing Department. With me is Ferry Smith and Danya Perez, both in our housing department, do a lot of work on housing projects. Frank Cornier is the president and CEO of Tampa Bay Neighborhood Housing Services. They've been a partner of ours for more than 40 years. They're one of the more active home builders in Clearwater. Hope Expo is Saturday at the Raymond James offices in Carillon Parkway, and walk-ins are welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your work. Homeownership's obviously a very important issue and housing in Clearwater right now, and appreciate your work. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
That would move to item 4.3 on the agenda, Pride Proclamation. This time I'd like to call forward Tiffany Macris from our Human Resources Department. Tiffany? Whereas all are welcome in the city of Clearwater to live, work, play, and retire, every family deserves a place to call. Well, that's the same one we just read. Somehow I got two of the housing. I don't think you want to hear that one again. Whereas a number of pride events and people of all races contribute to the history of equality for all people, and whereas each year the month of June honors the 1969 Stonewall riots in Manhattan and the struggle for basic civil rights for the pride community, to remind all cultures within our wider community of the important roles a diverse range of people have taken in shaping the social, historical, legal, and political worlds we live in today. And whereas Pride Month affords a special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about this history and to honor the many diverse American leaders who have contributed to the progress of our nation. And whereas the city of Clearwater has a strong history of honoring inclusivity and showing love and respect to all, regardless of different backgrounds, we value the contributions of all of our citizens bring to the city and pride ourselves on diversity and becoming a welcoming city. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim June 2024 to be Pride Month in Clearwater and call upon our community to respect, honor, and celebrate our diverse community. Tiffany, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor, Council. Tiffany Macris, HR Director, and I really think all the kudos belongs to the team behind me for putting on just so many excellent events and demonstrating to the city and the city employees and the community how much pride means to us. So thank you very much.
And thank you all for helping us create a very welcoming, inviting community.
We're shaking. Hi, thank you, sir. Watch your step, sir.
Come on, when the door opens.
Oh, Lord. That was a good one.
This time we'll move to item 4.3, 4.4 on the agenda, Juneteenth proclamation. Whereas people from all nations make up our country who have been declared equal rights in justice, life, and pursuit of happiness, and whereas the Emancipation Proclamation made the permanent abolition of slavery a Union war aim and provided the legal framework for the emancipation of nearly all 4 million slaves as the Union armies advanced. On June 19, 1865, almost 2.5 years later, Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced the end of both the Civil War and slavery. And whereas Texans began the celebration of Juneteenth in 1866 and is the oldest celebration of ending of slavery in the United States, and whereas on June 17, 2021, President Biden signed legislation on making Juneteenth a federal holiday, enshrining June 19th as the national day to commemorate the end of slavery in the United States, and whereas the City of Clearwater embraces and observes the national holiday celebrating African American culture and will continue to honor and champion inclusion and diversity throughout the city. Now therefore, I, Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do hereby proclaim June 19, 2024 to be Juneteenth in Clearwater. We encourage all residents and visitors to celebrate this true expression of freedom and this country's value of freedom for all, and continue to honor the African American communities, which are now a vital part of our country. Anyone would like to speak? Yeah.
Hi, Karen Swafford, HR Division Manager. I would like to welcome the Diversity Leadership Council and also welcome Javante Frazier as well to speak.
Good evening, Council. On behalf of the DELC, Diversity Leadership Council, city staff, and members of the community, I want to say thank you to you for your commitment to fostering a diverse workforce and diverse city of Clearwater. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
A long time to see.
Thanks again.
I know, be careful.
Okay, now we'll now return to item 4.1 on the agenda. I'd like to call up at this time the Florida League of Mayors Executive Director Scott Dudley.
Good evening, Mayor. We missed you today. I know you had other stuff, but thanks for being a part of the Florida League of Mayors. We appreciate it. I'm Scott Dudley. I'm with the Florida League of Cities. I also am the Executive Director of the Florida League of Mayors. And each year, the Florida League of Cities and the League of Mayors put together an essay contest called If I Were Elected Mayor. And we're happy to, I'm part of my pleasure of being in the executive director is that I get to go around and give awards to young, bright minds that are thinking about what they would do if they were elected. And so tonight I'm here to present an award to a gentleman, Andrew Johnson, who's a first place winner with a $1,000 check. He already received the $1,000 check, so I don't have that for him tonight, so we're not double dipping. But just wanted to tell you a little bit about the essay contest. It's the 10th year we've been doing it. It's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders from across the state of Florida. The League of Cities and the League of Mayors combine on this. We received about 1,200 essays this year, which is a really good number. And Mr. Johnson there was a tie, first time we've ever had that, a tie for first place. It went through like 8 different rounds of judging, and both of them were so good that we just decided that we didn't want to draw a name out of a hat or anything. They both deserve first place, and so we're doing that this year, first time ever. And it's a good problem to have, the fact that people understand home rule and what it's all about. And so I'd like, if I could, Mayor, just to read a couple of sentences, just kind of what he talked about in his essay. First, you would focus, and you better be careful, Mayor, because you got some pretty good ideas. I would first focus on issues concerning the recent population increase in my city. I developed new ways to make housing more affordable by reforming zoning laws, attracting investors and businesses to our area to construct these accommodations, improve transportation by repairing broken roads and highways, increasing public transportation, and supplying sidewalks where needed. He also addresses lowering the crime rate by hiring more police officers, paying police officers better, et cetera. Kind of a lot of the ideas that you all struggle with on a daily basis, but this young gentleman has thought about some of that stuff and put it into words. In 250 words or less, he described what he would do, and it's really cool, honestly, that we had a tie that 2 people came up with just top rung essays on what they would do if they were mayor. And we, the League of Mayors and League of Cities, lots of whereases. I won't bore you with them. You all know the resolution process, so I won't go into a grind on those. It's really about what he would do, whereas the essay wonderfully described what Andrew would do to make the community a better place if he was elected mayor. Whereas through this contest, Andrew has offered an important opportunity to better understand the community and gain more valuable insight into what his role could be in shaping shaping the future of not only Clearwater, but all of Florida's municipalities. So proud to present this to him, and we're delighted that Clearwater had one of the winners. It's great. It says you all are doing a great job of teaching your citizens what's going on and what they need to be focused on. And so happy to have that. I don't know if Mr. Johnson is here tonight.
Yeah, he's calling up.
Great.
Yeah.
Come on up, young man. All right. You got the check. You know what you're spending it on? No?
Give us a smile.
So, invested plastics.
Yeah. Please, yeah.
Mr. Johnson? Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Mayor, would you like to
Yeah, I'd
come?
like to present it to him.
Yeah.
Thank you for participating and making all of Clearwater proud. Appreciate what you've done for us. Yeah.
Mayor, could we get a picture?
Yes, yes. And please,
No, go ahead.
and invite you to meet our other council members. They may want to shake your hand.
Congratulations. Great job.
Yeah.
Great job. Keep it going.
Congratulations. Take care. If you're only in 7th grade, you could win again next year, too. We're going to be looking for the same words.
Well, we're very proud of you.
It's
and,
awesome.
And you've made all of Clearwater proud. And you can reach out to me through your mom anytime. This mayor would love to have your input and share your ideas with me. I'd love to hear them. So you've got some good ideas.
That's
Thank
great,
you.
Mayor. Thank you. So
Thank you,
appreciate
Scott. Yeah,
appreciate you
appreciate
letting
it.
me be here tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep up the great work, all of you.
Very smooth.
Okay, well, we've taken a lot out of order, so I'm going to go back to what I meant to do earlier, and that's introduce our dais tonight. So to my right is our city manager, Jennifer Poirier.
Good evening.
To her left is our council member, Ryan Cotton.
Good evening.
To my immediate right is Councilmember Lena Teixeira.
Good evening.
To my immediate left is Vice Mayor David Albritton.
Good evening.
To his left is Councilmember Mike Menino.
Good evening.
And to his left is our city attorney, David Margolis.
Good evening.
Before we go into the agenda tonight, I did want to also just say that in addition to the comment cards, which are really helpful to us, and there are some things that people come up, particularly in a public comment at the end, that they want to share with us, that we really would like to reach out to you. The other thing is, we could ask about the 3-minute time limit, and the public's invited to comment on any agenda item, and also at the end, if there's something that's not on the agenda, you'll have the opportunity to comment too. The 3-minute time limit isn't for us. It's really for you all. It's to help you be respectful of the other people who are here, who also have a voice and have something important they want to say, and so there isn't one person dominating the entire meeting with what they want to say, but they're being respectful to the others in attendance and limiting their time and their comments to give others a chance to say what they want to say. I do want to say too that many citizens reach out to us on many issues. They write to us, they call us. Some have come to a prior meeting and put their comments and thoughts on the record. I want you to know that this council, I know with 100% confidence, reads everything that's sent to us. And so if you've sent in comments, know that those have been read. You're free to speak again tonight, but do know that it's not necessarily necessary. because we have read everything that's come into the city hall and considered all of it. So, but the biggest thing I just want to share is the 3 minutes, stay under that limit, just to be respectful of those others here tonight that want to speak on different topics or different things. And then also be respectful to one another in your comments. And that, I guarantee you this. I know everyone up here at this dais. I know all 1,800 of our City of Clearwater employees. I know all of you here in the room tonight who are residents of the City of Clearwater. You all love Clearwater just as much as we all do. We all do. And we all want to make it better. And so having a civil dialogue on issues that come before the council is really important. And I appreciate your participation in that, being respectful to one another, and helping us have a productive meeting. So with that, we'll move to item 5.1 on the agenda, approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve item 5.1 on the agenda.
Second.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we'll move to the consent agenda.
Council members, I have a request to remove items 6.2, 6.3, 6.10, and 6.11.
This time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, except for those items just mentioned.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. With that, we'll move to item 6.2 on the agenda.
Authorize a purchase order to 10-8 Fire and Equipment, Inc. of Bradenton, Florida, for one Osage Warrior Type 1 Rescue 2027 Ford F-450 extended cab chassis in the amount of $352,078 pursuant to Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.563, Paren 1, Paren C, piggyback, and 2.563, Paren 1, Paren D, non-competitive purchase, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Scott Ellis, Fire Chief, Clearwater Fire and Rescue. This item before you is to request the approval for the purchase of one Osage ALS transport vehicle, one and a half 450 chassis in the amount of $352,078 with 10-8 fire equipment. The basic model identified in the Florida Sheriff's contract does not provide for the elements that fulfill Clearwater Fire and Rescue's mission and capabilities. The additional options selected are specific to CFR rescue companies, which for urban EMS response to include the heavier duty chassis, heavy duty drivetrain, and departmental specific compartmentation. Because of our ALS contract with Pinellas County, this vehicle is reimbursed by county EMS dollars. As a reminder, we maintain a fleet of 3 ALS transport units with several reserves. Those are Rescue 46, Rescue 48, and Rescue 49. The other 2 are medic units, which are smaller suburban type of vehicles, which we started about several years ago to help cut down on fuel costs, vehicle costs, and emissions. This has proved worthwhile for those 2 units. However, we maintain the transport vehicles in areas that need the capability of times where SunStar is delayed or facilitate the best for the patient. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Anyone here from the public desire to speak with regard to agenda item 6.2?
I've already submitted my card,
Okay.
just in case you ask. Good evening, Mayor Rector, council members, Ms. Poirier, Mr. Margolis, and staff. My name is Rudy Michaelek, and I am speaking on behalf of my own today. I commend our fire chief for his thoughtfulness and planning for the future needs of his department, recognizing the substantial lead time, 3 years, to get the replacement equipment he needs. During the last several work sessions and council meetings, we have seen notable requests for equipment rental and lease, money set aside due to breakdowns, asset breakdowns, and no equipment available to meet day-to-day needs. Amounts in the sum of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I refer to issues on North Beach and the sanitation equipment, among others. For far too long, prior council leadership and city management apparently did not invest timely in equipment we need now and for the future. Candidates for city council in the recent election highlighted infrastructure as needing maximum attention, even noting, I believe, that one major storm could knock out 2/3 of our sewage treatment plants. As we enter the next city budget season, strategic planning cycle, I hope each of you will remember your pledges and vigorously pursue substantial improvements in our asset management system, just as our fire chief has done. i.e., do we have a real updated infrastructure capacity plan, especially considering the runaway construction on the beach? A preventative maintenance program identifying equipment issues, timely replacements, etc., and a strategic plan to forecast equipment purchases to minimize future third-party rentals. And with that, I hope you enjoy that budget cycle and strategic planning, and my best to you. And please, council members who spoke very specifically on infrastructure, the time is now to make sure that this next budget meets some of those needs. So we look forward to your leadership in that action. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here from the public that desires to speak with regard to item 6.2? Seeing none, is there any council discussion on this item?
Move to approve agenda item 6.2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we'll move to item 6.3 on the agenda.
Approve work order to Atkins Realis USA of Tampa, Florida for Fort Harrison Avenue corridor improvement, design and bidding of Phase 2, 3, and 4 in the amounts of $5,828,509.10 pursuant to request for qualification 04-21 and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Before we go into the overall, there was some discussions that went on regarding the demonstration projects that were done out there. That is actually a separate project, but I did want to give an update. There was a request regarding some of the southern portion of it and some issues with it necking down to the one lane in those demonstration. Again, the demonstration projects were to test some of these concepts. So I think we've clearly seen a couple of those did not work as well as we were wanting them to work. We've gotten some of that feedback. So as requested, we've been working the last couple of days. So we will start, it'll probably take us 6 to 8 weeks to get through the whole thing. We'll have to work from the south side coming back north to reestablish those lanes. So over the next 6 to 8 weeks, you should see our crews starting to go out there, and they'll start working that restriping effort for restoring those lanes back to the way they were. In this project, as we go through, again, phases 2 through 4, as we talked about before, that will carry through that area. As part of that, there will be a design charrette that will go on. A lot of this information and data that was taken from that will go into that. That will have key city stakeholders in it as part of that conversation. We'll be able to have some dialogue for what makes sense and what doesn't. The work order also calls for several public charrettes where they will have a chance to be able to see what the plans are and provide some public feedback also. So with that, again, we don't want people thinking that's what the permanent solution was. I think we've seen enough that we will we'll be looking at some other options through that strip that's out there. So with that, again, on the work order, there was a pretty concerted effort as we're working to make sure we're doing these projects within the budget. The design actually came down about just a little under 25%, so it was a $1.8 million reduction to the $5.8 million. That was a combination of leveraging some of the FDOT design estimating, but also working with the contractor to push that design into one design package that we can then award multiple construction. So that allows us to have a little bit more fiscal flexibility as we fund those construction phases, but we get the benefit out of the design savings by consolidating it. I do have both our traffic engineer and the design firm here if there's any feedback you want to provide to any of us, or if you have any questions.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak with regard to agenda item 6.3?
Good evening again, Mayor Rector, council members, Ms. Poirier, Mr. Margolis, and staff. My name is still Rudy Michaelek. On this project, I may have missed some previous presentations, and so I apologize up front if I misspeak. However, this item appears as a design and bid piece for Fort Harrison Avenue in the amount of $5.8 million. It is not until you read through the whole program that you become aware that the full proposal is a 6-year program, which was $58 million, but is now estimated at $72.7 million. That's a $14.7 million increase, substantially above inflation. Is this inflation? I think not. One would think a project of this size for 2.2 miles of roadway, roughly the same as Drew Street, but costing $72.7 million, would get public hearings, presentations, as was done with Coachman Park, the amphitheater, Drew Street, the Bluffs development of apartments and hotels, and the City Hall plans. But apparently it was easier to move to the consent agenda so the public would not know the full ramifications of this whole project. In previous council meetings about Drew Street, it was noted that Fort Harrison was a failure without explaining why it was a failure. Is this the fix for $72.7 million, 4 times Drew Street? I think before you put your stamp of approval on this next step, you should bring this project into the light of day with public meetings explaining what you are doing with our money. In other words, what is the full ramifications of what's being done in 2.2 miles? And as I noticed, simply traveling, as I do frequently, from Druid to Drew Street, we have 7 stoplights. So if there's an issue about moving traffic through this point, I would suggest 7 traffic lights and 7 blocks. That's probably a lot of the problem. Anyhow, I appreciate your attention to this issue, and I would ask that as in other projects of major dollar amounts, that there be something generated in order to make presentations to the general public about how all this money is being spent. Thank you.
Yeah, we're here for a business meeting. We really don't need applause. I appreciate, you all are welcome to congratulate Mr. Michael on his comments afterwards, but it really lengthens the meeting when we're waiting for applause after every speaker. So appreciate you helping us tonight. So with that, is there anyone else here from the public who would like to speak with regard to item 6.3? Hearing none, is there any council discussion on this agenda item? Is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 6.3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we move to item 6.10.
Approve an agreement with Century Link Communications LLC doing business as Lumen Technologies Group of Bloomfield, Colorado for telecommunications and internet services in the amounts of $305,000 from July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2027, in accordance with Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.563(1)(d), non-competitive purchase, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Mayor, council members, Dan Mayer, IT Director. Lumen is one of the 4 major telecommunications companies we use for both telephones and internet service. Specifically, this serves a direct connection between our police dispatch and the sheriff's office or the 911 center at the county. It does provide currently some old telephone lines which we're moving off of, and it provides several major internet connections that we need to support the many systems that we are moving to the cloud. It's a capacity issue. This is a 3-year agreement. It's approximately $125,000 less than the previous 3-year agreement, and will be lower in the next term as we continue to move, turn services off as we've moved to internet phone service as opposed to copper lines. So with that, I can answer any questions about the infrastructure or what it serves.
Does anyone here from the public wish to speak to item 6.10?
How we doing? My name is Michael Taylor from the United States of America. And I spoke, I think it was roughly 2 months ago, I think 2-3 months ago, and you allocated $400 and something thousand into more internet and storing of this and that. And here you are getting another $305,000. The biggest problem I have with what you do, or what and I'm not even from here. I come here because I see these people's money being spent at such a high rate. And this isn't, I would love, please, I'm gonna
Mr. Taylor,
reach out.
Mr. Taylor,
Wait, hold on.
just address us. I mean, that's the purpose of this.
I'm going to talk to him so that I can understand the logistics, because to be honest, whenever you go through this stuff on your work sessions, and I sit at my house and I watch these things, and it's a bunch of garble. I want to know why it cost you $100-something thousand every year for phone calls to the police. Anybody can get AT&T or whatever the fact may be. We can all get AT&T. How much does that cost any regular person here? And just because it's the police and because you have to record, but the recording half is part of the other $400,000 that you already gave to him 2 months ago. So the recording half of it, it just doesn't make sense. Make it make sense to the residents, because even when I do it, it doesn't make sense. This is $305,000. This isn't chump change. And I hope that everybody that's watching this live stream right now question these people. Do records requests. Call them and say, I want this information. And if they refuse to do it, there are laws protecting, or there's laws that say that you're in trouble for not giving them. And I'm not saying you're not giving them. I'm not going to make that assumption. And that's why I'm like, after I'm done, I would love to talk to you. I'll give you my email, and I would love to see this in a rational form, because $305,000 over 3 years. I mean, for phone calls and internet service, I thought you just did that 2 months ago. But anyway, it's just the fact that I drive 4 hours just to come here to speak about this. And then I'll be speaking on the next one, too.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Anyone else here from the public desire to speak with regard to agenda item 6.10? All right. Any council discussion with regard to agenda item 6.10? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. It's time to move to item 6.11.
Approve a purchase agreement from Trident Pontoons, Inc. of Ferry, Florida for the purchase of 2 ferry vessels in the amount of $930,086 pursuant to request for a proposal 32-24 and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mike McDonald. I'm the Director of Marine and Aviation Department. This item is to accept a purchase agreement for the purchase of 2 ferry vessels for $930,086 through a Florida Department of Transportation grant. Council previously approved the second extension and second amendment to the ferry agreement, which also gave a $500,000 subsidy. You guys previously accepted a grant from Florida Department of Transportation for $1 million, $800,000 for a ferry vessel. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 6.11?
All right. And I'm really not trying to criticize people. I really want you to understand, I'm a fisherman. I've been a fisherman my whole life, and I know what boats cost. And how many seats? I just want to get a understand.
Yeah.
Let the people understand what they're paying for. Just like you have 100 friggin' parking spots that cost $2 million, that you've lost $2 million, I just want to know how many seats are going to be on these vessels. Simple question. And then, because I've already looked it up about this ferry project, it's $5 a head, right? God, it's just so infuriating that you can't answer just one simple question. How many seats? Okay, everybody, let's just do the math. Let's say there's 100 seats on this. It's $500 a day. Or let's just say they run it all day and they fill it all day. How many people are you're making $5,000 a day and you're about to spend $1 million on 2 vessels. Do you think you're going to recoup all this money? And then you've got parking spots that you've lost $2 million on. Who's going to trust you spending this is $1 million on boats. It's not like you're taking these people, oh, Clearwater is doing we're going to take you fishing. Do you know how much fishing charters cost? Fishing charters are within the thousands of dollars, depending on where you go. You get on one of the big boats that just take 20 people out, that's still like $100. And you're charging $5 a head, and it travels from right over here, over to the beach, and up to Dunedin, right? I had to do some research about some of this, and to spend almost $1 million on 2 boats. I can go buy a pontoon boat, an 18-foot pontoon boat right now for $36,000, and that will hold 15 people. That sounds like a better idea compared to a boat that's not going to be filled every single day. The only time that this is going to be filled is on what? Your weekends, your spring breaks, whenever people are here. That's the only time possibly they could be filled. And you're willing to take taxpayer money, $1 million of it, with just like, let's just, Clearwater made of money, yay! I don't like coming here to do this. I don't like driving 4 hours to come here and say these things. But anyway, I'll see you at public comment. And once again, you're going to be like, oh, motion, second, unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Watch, everybody.
Anyone else here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 6.11?
I will skip the introduction because I think we've already had it together. This project is the purchase of 2 ferry boats for almost $1 million, paid for by an 83% grant. So it's not money coming necessarily out of our pocket. And this is fine. But not clearly identified is who will benefit from the boats in terms of Clearwater and the citizens. What benefits will they receive? Who will operate these boats? Are third parties involved? What is the relationship between the third parties and city officials? And is there a need for more ferries based upon current similar service usage? Again, I've not heard answers to those questions. I am hopeful that we may hear some answers to a couple of those questions here before you all vote, because I think it's important. However, it is an 83% grant, so somebody else is footing the bill, but it would be nice to know who is operating, how they're operating, and is the need really there if this money is going to be spent. Thank you.
Anyone else here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 6.11? Seeing none, is there any discussion among the council? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 6.11.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Time we'll move to item 7.1 on the agenda.
Approve co-sponsorship and waiver of requested city fees for 11 high-impact co-sponsored special events at an estimated cost for in-kind services and cash of $752,100, $637,840 from general fund, and $39,260 from enterprise, and $75,000 cash. Funding the Community Events Co-Sponsorship Program of $200,000 for the purpose of fiscal year 2024-2025 departmental budget submissions, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Art Cater, Parks and Recreation Director. This item was discussed at the work session on Monday, January the 3rd, so I'm not going to go over that same presentation with you. However, I would like to clear up some of your questions and possible concerns relative to this item and share with you some options that you might want to consider regarding this item. As all of you know, special events have been a large part of the city of Clearwater for many, many years. Historically, it goes back with Fun and Sun Parade, and even before that, with so many facilities that we had here on the beach. We had the Civic Center, we had downtown auditorium, and even before that, we certainly had parades in downtown Clearwater. The department, what has happened though over the recent years, many special events came to the city council, and the city council heard them. However, they were so numerous that you had to deal with them. The council back then dealt with them individually as they came about. Also, these events cost money, and the departments were not resourced for those at that time. So in about 2000, early 2020, basically a city council policy was established. The earliest record we can locate about what they call as council policy item M was revised by the council on August 21st, 2003. So this council policy began somewhere around 2000. I wish I could remember the date, but I've been here so long I forget. But it has been in place for at least 24 to 25 years. Regardless of when it was established, it has been revised on at least 4 separate occasions by various councils, the last of which was December 19th, 2023, when 2 separate type of event funding programs, one a high-impact event defined as a program that supported events that were $20,000 to cover city service costs, or had an attendance of 5,000. It wasn't both the same, it was and/or. And then they also established the Community Event Co-Sponsorship Program for events less than $20,000 in support of a minimum of 300 people in attendance. It should be noted that when we use the word in-kind services, we're referring to those city services, the costs that are placed within each department operating budgets for the year. And that's why we're bringing it before you at this time, so that we can put those dollars in to pay for the police, to pay for the fire, to pay for Parks and Recreation. It is not cash. Cash is not distributed in-kind services for these high events. The only high event that we are recommending to support with cash is $75,000 for the Jazz Holiday for this one year. Cash funding is distributed with the Community Event Program, and this year the council has approved 15 community events that are basically less than $10,000, and 4 events that are from $10,000 to $20,000. I hope you've had the opportunity to visit the various websites online that provide information about the special events process, how to apply for a special event, and how to qualify for co-sponsors, et cetera. The Parks and Recreation Department has developed a robust and well-thought-out functioning special events process for all citizens, providing them with opportunities for co-sponsorship, all of which are based on the current Council Policy 2-21. If there is consensus, the council can change this policy at any time, and staff is more than willing to comply with these revised policies. And I'm not sure if that is the intent of this meeting tonight, but that is certainly in your purview to do. However, I would like to give you some additional information that might be helpful in your discussions going forward regarding this item. The item before you tonight is to consider funding $752,100 in-kind support for 11 high-impact events and $200,000 for community event co-sponsorship program. Several options you might want to consider for this item include: approve the agenda item and funding as presented in the item. Number two, roll back the funding for all of the 11 high-impact events to their current funding level, which would reduce the in-kind cost by $169,040. A third option could be fund only nonprofit organizations, which would eliminate Clearwater Marathon and Run Festival, Clearwater Offshore Nationals, and Salsa at the District, reducing the in-kind cost by $62,410. The fourth option that I present to you is to allocate a set amount of funds for high-impact events and allow City Special Event Review Committee to allocate funding to the various applicants based on a competitive rating scale, which we have done with all of these events. The funding amount could be set at any level that you so desire. But let's just say you say tonight $550,000. That would be a reduction of $202,100 of in-kind services. Once again, we're not talking about cash. Although it is cash because you have to pay for the people. That's why we're putting it in the budget, one way or the other. But we have more control when we control it with our own staff. In the future, if the council chooses to change the current policy, staff is recommending a model that provides time and place for high-impact events where they pay all of the cost. Or you can enter into separate multi-year agreements for those events with the city. The council would have to approve each and every one of those agreements if you choose to do that. We're available to answer any questions you might have.
Anyone here from the public who desire to speak with regard to this agenda item?
I'm not that old, my foot went to sleep, thank you. Surprised me as well. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city officials. Patrick Raftery, Countryside area, 45 years. I listened to the work session on this Monday, and I need to commend the city council, and in particular, Mr. Menino, as he raised some questions about this high-impact funding that Mr. Caters just talked about. And he's presented yourselves with some excellent options to address it. I was rather surprised at the comments that Mr. Menino made. For example, on the high-impact, 11 high-impact events, $752,000, he had some reservations about the $65,000 that would go to the turkey trot and seemed to have some valid concerns about that monies, as well as the monies that would be allocated to the beach marathon. I think Mr. Cater has presented some options that you should give serious consideration to possibly take a look at this in more detail to see if there's some validity in reducing some of these costs. I will leave that decision to yourselves, but I think he's presented you with some excellent options to consider. I would also note that in that same work session, the council has decided on the 10 days that are allocated to the city to use the sound, $270,000. They are going to take a look at that later as the agreement, I think, is finalized with Ruth Eckert Hall and perhaps some other details. But I think that's a good thing as well. We are given 10 days to use. It doesn't mean we have to use it. I would like to think we wouldn't think 10 days, $270,000. Let's think of some events that we could schedule and use that money for. Let's look at it from the standpoint of how should we best spend that money. And if we don't need 10 days, we don't need 10 days. I would also note that at the work session, a discussion amongst the council members was about the Memorial Day event that was scheduled at Coachman Park. It did get some good publicity, and I thought it was a great venue moving from Crest Lake Park to the Coachman Park. But evidently, there was a number of people, particularly Mr. Albritton, who expressed some disappointment with respect to how it was organized and what was done. I think that is, again, to be commended to the council for them taking a look at that, not to make disparaging remarks about the veterans, but to say, what can we do to make it better, as was suggested, working with the city officials. So I appreciate your giving me this time, and I think you should give some strong consideration to Mr. Cater's options. Thank you very much.
Anyone else here from the public wish to speak with regard to this item?
I'm Tony from the 520, 522, and 528 Cleveland Street. I'm here to represent the District Downtown Merchant Association, and I just wanted to touch base and applaud you guys for the last city council meeting. Your work session was phenomenal. I was going to say the same thing about Mike Menino. Your not only your passion for this community, as well as the steps you take, not only yourself but your wife, to do events and to try to promote the downtown is inspiring. Your concern about how we spend the money and what we do with it, it shows that you are a true advocate of the citizens, and I appreciate that as a huge advocate of that. Even Lena, with your concerns and your fair judgment of the events, that's how we improve. We have to be critical of the events that go on, because those events not only cost us money, but we can make them better. It's not to say that they were bad, but why not look to improve? It's humility that gets us to the destination we want to be at. And I'm here just to commend that and to say that the Downtown Merchant Association District, as you guys know, is a nonprofit as well. And the steps that you guys are taking to make these events more accessible to a community of merchants and people that want to make this town better is something that is awe-inspiring at this moment. And I just commend you guys for your effort and applaud you guys for your resilience. Thank you, guys.
Anyone else here desire to speak to item 7.1?
Good evening, Council. Bill Johnson. I sent you an email commending you for the Memorial Day program, but expressing some surprise that it wasn't held in the Sound, where there would be shade available. And I noticed in this particular agenda item that if these events were in the Sound, it would be $270,000 more to have the event. That's confusing based on what how I thought things would work, how we communicated to the public when we were considering that option. I would just throw that out and say it'd be nice to have some feedback on that. Thank you very much.
Greetings. I thought I'd have to wait until citizens be heard on this item. And it was kind of interesting that I was making my way down here and I saw who did the invocation. So as I was walking out.
Just for the record, just introduce yourself.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Your name and your address. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Philip Kitchens, 30-year resident of Clearwater, Florida, proudly has lived on Seaver Drive, not far from Plum Elementary, not far from the hill where the cemetery. So, anyhow.
Thank you.
I'll start again. As I was making my way in, I ran into the chaplain that left, and we got to talking about the Memorial Day event. And first thing I said to him is, sir, I was walking in to say we need to pause on Veterans Day. That Memorial Day did not go well at all. I've been probably to every Memorial Day event for 30 years in Clearwater, Florida, Pinellas County. I'm a veteran. My father served in World War II. My brother served in Vietnam. I almost feel like a line from the Forrest Gump movie. I've got relatives that died in every war, revolution forward. I'm Mr. Vet. And I even told the chaplain I wish a few years ago he'd invited me to join his group and dialogue on some of this stuff, because my notes that I wrote down, and I'll just, again, I thought I was going to do this as citizens to be heard, but since we're talking about the use of Coachman Park, I think it's noteworthy to say what I expect to see on Memorial Day for my event. And you start with how you do your Veterans Day event or Memorial Day. You're putting flags on graves. So it's almost like encourage people, give them flags. I went to the cemetery on Sylvan Abbey Road, and I had flags in my car. I had over 50 of them. I handed them all out. People put them on graves. A moment of silence, taps, pause and lower the flag at half-mast. One thing again, it may not be appropriate right now, but I went to Safety Harbor on Memorial Day Monday, and their flags weren't at half-mast. So it's not just Clearwater, it's all through this area. We have a problem with how to celebrate Memorial Day. So I think really on this, what I wanted to say is just the big soundbite that I listened to discussion on Monday. There's a lot of nervousness about what happened, and I'd almost say that we need to really rethink before we have another parade. I told the chaplain, see the Sun and Fun parade we used to have. We need to have another one like that to get the route down, get a parade, successful parade, before we put all this together with all the moving parts of a Veterans Parade, because vehicles canceled out, bands. So anyhow,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Ben.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else here from the public want to speak to item 7.1? Seeing none, council discussion. Vice Mayor?
So after our work session on Monday, I went back and I looked at all the events that are on this item here. And all these events are historic events in Clearwater. I mean, they're great events, and I really support every one of these events. I know we talked about the turkey trot. Somebody mentioned that, there's a lot of people that ran without a tag on there, but I tell you, I do it almost every year, and it's just amazing how many people are that come out for the turkey trot. It seems like all of Clearwater's there, because it fills the road from Gulf to Bay all the way past Druid Road with just people lining up for the race. The width of the road, almost a half a mile long. It's amazing. And all these other Clearwater Jazz Holiday, what a great event. I mean, over 40 years on that event. And Sea Blues Festival, I love the Sea Blues Festival. These are events that really bring out a lot of people in Clearwater, and I've had so many pleasant comments over the years about how people love it. And, I looked at the money. I'm glad that the chart that was in our paperwork here does show what departments, I won't say the money, the cash money, it's all city services, but it shows the departments that give up the cities, that support the city services for that event. And I know the legislature's made it a little harder lately. You can't have a simple running race now and have volunteers at roadways. You got to have the police there. So that costs money, and if we don't do it, people that are organizing the event won't have the money to do it. And I'm just glad that the city participates in this and puts these events on. So, I'm willing to just support this as written. I don't think we need to go into anything right now, but I'll let everybody else talk here.
Councilmember Teixeira?
I know that Councilmember Menino really took the lead on these concerns, and so if you don't mind, if you can talk me through what does it look like? Are any of the suggestions that Mr. Cater has given you tonight, is that something that you'd be interested? Just clarify what kind of support you're getting, what kind of support you want from us, and what direction.
Yeah, fair enough, and thank you for that, because Monday, I did have plenty of questions regarding this agenda item, as it had a lot of moving parts in it. Maybe there was some uncertainty on us, what was being asked of us, and with those a lot of moving parts that were lumped into one. There was basically one approval that was being looked for the agenda item. We put the other one on hold. I, first of all, greatly appreciate city manager and city staff diligently answering all questions and concerns that we had, because I know we threw a lot at you in a very short amount of time. And you gave us more information than we probably were asking for, and sometimes that's even better, so I thank you for that. To address the two that I had the biggest concerns on, I'll move forward. First of all, I'll throw a little curveball at you, but I was pleased to hear that the West Florida Y Runners have officially agreed to change their event name from the Tampa Bay Times Turkey Trot to the Clearwater Turkey Trot. Is that true?
Correct.
So
Yes.
we got something out of that. That was worth a workshop discussion, so I commend you on that. Thank you for that. I recognize that the West Florida Y Runners eliminated the 10K distance. I think that was a responsible decision that decreases their impacts on the surrounding communities and on our city services and staff. I will say that while I was kind of tough on that event on Monday, Skip Rogers and the West Florida Y Runners have been fabric in our running endurance community since the 70s. I recognize our Turkey Trot as a Clearwater community and family tradition since 1979. I know they've been in the community since the 70s. I do support our city's in-kind co-sponsorship to continue that with them. I think that is a tradition in getting that title sponsorship into Clearwater's Turkey Trot. I think that's a good thing, so I support that. On the other one, our beach community is a different story, and I don't think you can paint all events with the same brush, nor do I think you can approach events in one holistic approach. Each event is its different beast with moving parts, locations, its scope, its size. Our beach community is challenged with transportation, congestion, density, overcrowding. Many of those neighborhoods feel like they're slowly being pushed off the edges, which it's hard to argue with them on that fact. I think being good stewards of our beach asset and recognizes its challenges, it means that we have a responsibility to protect it in them, to mitigate those challenges when possible. In contrast, the Clearwater Turkey Trot to the Running Festival, which is a different beast. This festival impacts multiple beach communities. It mandates every Clearwater Police Department officer works. It temporarily closes northbound Sand Key Bridge, Gulf Boulevard, one lane eastbound on our Causeway Bridge, which last year I was on it at 11:30 in the morning. It was still shut down to one lane and it was gridlocked leaving the beach. It shuts down our Sand Key Park, and the distances of 50 miles, 26.2 miles, and 13.1 miles equates to more than 5 hours of an open course through our surrounding communities. Our beach community is not the best place for this scope and distance, and its impacts on that community, I think, are too much. I think we've outgrown it. Safety Harbor is a good fit. The Best Damn Race, Nick Zivelich, puts on a great event with those distances. Safety Harbor community can handle it down there. They're not what our beach is, so I don't think our beach is the best place for that. If this out-of-state for-profit company desires to impact our community at this level, and Parks and Rec are giving them the green light and a permit for it, I firmly believe that they should at the very least pay their city service, police, and road closure bills. And that's what my statement was. I don't believe that with those negative impacts on our beach community, adding to those challenges, that we as a city should then not write a check for $25,000, but in essence we are when we're paying their bills for them. So I think for clarity, and thank you for asking, Mr. Sheriff, for clarity to my fellow council members, I support approving this agenda item 7.1, but I would support it with the amendment of eliminating the Clearwater Running Festival from that high-impact co-sponsor agreement, which would equate to an approval financially of $727,500 for the 24-25 budget cycle. I do think that obviously some of your recommendations are fitting, but some of them put events in one box and paints them with the same brush, and I don't know if I'm supportive of that direction. Probably needs us to have a further discussion on it, but I am in support of approving this, eliminating that event from that list, and the dollar donation, the denomination amount of $727,000 and $500 for the 24-25 budget.
Councilmember Cotton?
Yes, thank you. So I was obviously absent for jury duty, so please forgive me for not being here Monday. Agreed with a lot of what Mr. Menino alluded to and where taxpayer dollars and funds are being allocated and for what reasons. And thank you for saying those statements. I agree with what you're saying here tonight to an extent. Looking at this, the first event isn't until October of 2024. You proposed 4 different items for us within the 3 days, and thank you and your staff very much for working diligently and hard to try and get us those. I would like to see that more laid out in the dollar amounts and where we're seeing those options, because even though the turkey trot has come to the Clearwater Turkey Trot, I still echo some same sentiments as to, is that what Clearwater taxpayers, even though it does have historical significance, my family did it last year and has done it multiple years, and it is very important. I'd still like to see the breakdown of the funds, the increases, and the different options that we have maybe laid out better. We do have a little bit of time, so maybe putting that in 2 weeks or 4 weeks from now, whatever fits best in the agenda. I would just like to see that and then make a better, more informed decision possibly.
Do you have anything else, Councilman Teixeira?
I'm just processing.
Well, I said on Monday that I'm really interested in what revenue each of these events is producing, particularly for the city. I know most cities today, from the work I've done with the company prior to becoming mayor, most cities would charge a use license fee for use of any park or city asset, and that would offset some of these costs. And so I don't think it's fair to agree with Councilmember Menino. I don't think it's fair for outside event operators to come in, use our city facilities and our resources, and then charge registration fees and leave town with a profit. They're taking money out of Clearwater for that. So I would just like, I would agree with what you've said about that one particular event, the Clearwater Running Festival, make an adjustment for that for now. I would leave everything else the same, but I would like to see us try to find a more competitive model to where if an event organization is using our city assets, for profit or nonprofit, but they're being fair with the citizens for use of the space. For instance, the Ironman group had a very successful Ironman marathon event over here, in tents all over Coachman Park, and they used a lot of space that I don't know if they did pay any kind of fee for use of the park or not, and they did bring a lot of folks here. I get that for the race, but I know also some of these groups get funding from Visit St. Pete Clearwater, and that's out of the bed tax, which is really taxpayer money too from our end. So I just want to see us find a model that we're treating our park assets, our city assets, as market competitive assets, like the sound, to where concert promoter or whoever wants to come in and run an event, then they're going to pay a fee for use of the facility to have that event, and we're not to offset some of these expenses that we have. So I would agree tonight, but I would like to see us move towards evaluating our process for, getting a use license agreement, analyzing. We want all these traditional Clearwater events to be successful and continue going. It's hopefully we get more and more demand, particularly for Coachman Park, for use for events. That was the goal. That's why we put a lot of money into improving it. But with that, I think we need to change our model on how we're letting outside event organizations, including out-of-town event organizations, use the park. And I think it's only fair to our citizens that if they're making money on an event, that they at least reimburse the city for some of these costs.
That is one of the reasons the last statement I made was one of the things that we like is time and place. In other words, this is such a wonderful place for somebody to be able to have simply a time and a place to be at Coachman Park should be enough of a sponsorship. That is the way St. Petersburg does it. And then all the event costs are paid for by that person or individual. There are other ways, as you said, we could charge for certain spaces. We do that right now. Where on the beach, if you want to rent a certain space, it costs you so much money for the application fee, that type of thing. We did have some pushback a couple of years ago from citizens, though, that were concerned with the special event process and application, complained about the cost of those. Because of that, we reduced the cost. And these are for smaller type events, to be quite honest with you. But still, was a perception that it was not easy to get a special event permit. Understood.
I recall that.
Yeah.
You know, I do, going through that process myself. I do feel that there is a difference between a for-profit organization doing an event where they're profiting from, doing business, and a nonprofit who's bringing a cultural or an event that has worth to the city. I think there is a difference, at least in my mind. So I'm comfortable just making that one amendment with the understanding that we need to revisit this and kind of really understand the process and make it equitable and review this whole thing. But with the one amendment, I'm comfortable with making that decision today.
Vice Mayor?
You mentioned the Ironman. The Ironman was a triathlon, run, swim, bike.
Well, it wasn't this time. This past time was not.
No, but earlier when we had the World Championship here, and that brought people from all over the world. They had hotel rooms here, and I can understand that. Now, the one that you were talking about, the running event that Ironman picked up that used to be.
It was a half marathon.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see the difference in something like that because one really makes a difference because there are people from all over coming in. But I'm not saying I want another Ironman here because that went all the way up to Trinity and back on the bike and was very disruptive. And I understand what you're saying about the running thing. I'd like to really, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to see us pass this tonight because there's events on here that are in the process now of trying to be put together. And if we delay this, it'll impact that. And people are looking, they need to start a year ahead of time, and I know they've already started looking for it. So was your preference to approve everything but the Clearwater Run Festival and then talk about that later? Is that?
That's what I was trying to communicate,
That
yes.
was kind of what you were thinking? Okay.
Do we have any use license agreement or anything with them that we're bound contractually for that running festival?
Chris can share with you. I will make a comment, though, that's part of the new model that we would bring, like, for instance, Ironman and all of those. We came before the council on each of those large agreements. And generally, even the one that we could not, and you can share about that one, where they had to just cancel the last event that we had simply because a city did not want to participate in that. That was one that the council had approved a 5-year agreement on that. And that would be part of our thing. We would bring those big type of events to you for your approval.
Yeah.
Mayor, Council, Chris Cook, Parks and Recreation. Could you repeat the question? I didn't hear the beginning.
With the Clearwater Running Festival, is there an agreement with them that's standing? So,
Yeah, there's no current agreement with them. We've talked to them about in the future looking at doing agreements pending the direction that we got from the council. I did talk to their executive director this morning. He said, they love this community and they would press on even without the financial support. They would make it work. He did want to let you all know that the funds that he would be, if he was to be granted what we were asking for, would be going into the event to make it a greater event and a greater experience for people, but he still would be willing to and excited to press forward with the event. I would ask, just from a point of historical context, we used to have a lot more races that would impact the Clearwater Memorial Causeway. And so years ago, staff made the transition to add any of those races that would impact the causeway onto the co-sponsored list for high impact, because that's about as high impact as we get to our community by closing the bridge. So that way, even if we reduce the funding, if we could keep them on the list, then it's showing that you all, are giving us that support to close the bridge for that race. A couple of other notes that I think may be helpful is the numbers we're talking about in kind. Our departments do a great job of being very conservative, so that, I'll just give you the example because we were talking about the Memorial Day event. So we gave what expected numbers would be, and then police worked very hard, traffic engineering worked very hard to get in and out in the safest way possible to save taxpayer dollars. So when you see these numbers, it's not as if all of those are always being allocated. That's just kind of the high-end mark not to exceed. And then, in our scoring, so this is the first year of the new high-impact program. So in our scoring for this year, we are going to collect P&L information from them, so that will be part of the rubric in the future, and information we can certainly share with all of you if that's important to see the financial benefit that they're getting on our property.
That's helpful to me.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with you and maybe not removing them, but I'm in the business, in the industry for 20-plus years. That's the only reason I have this crazy passion for it and a bit of knowledge in it. I put on events for downtown, for Capitol Pizza, Capitol Theater. There's responsible ways that stakeholders in our community would execute an event like that. And we did it from Coachman Park. We used the Helix and we used that beautiful trail. And you're not shutting down traffic. You're not closing down neighborhoods. You're not shutting down roads. You're not creating congestion. You're still putting on a great event. You're bringing people to downtown and to Coachman Park. And that's how it's responsibly done on a beach like ours. So I think we should be very hesitant. I was around and worked on Ironman when it was here. My wife was in the wetsuit area, stripping wetsuits off athletes, and we knew a quarter of the athletes who were in the event. Amazing event. Never again should we do that to our community. We shut down so many businesses and arterials that every place a car could pull out, a motorcycle, 15 miles, 20 miles on a bike covers a lot of distance in our community. And that's not fair to do to this community anymore. So while I agree with you on leaving it on the high impact list, if we remove funding for it, I would just say when those events come and want to do those things, steer them towards our beautiful parks, recreation facilities, our trail systems, the Pinellas Trail, the Ream Wilson Trail, the Duke Energy Trail. They're all attached to beautiful parks that they can have great events, keep our community safe, put an event on without shutting down the Skyway Bridge, without shutting down the Memorial Bridge, the Sankey Bridge, the Bel Air Bridge, Gulf Boulevard. I think that's outside coming in and irresponsible and a lack of good stewardship to our community. That's my thought. Mr. Mayor, may I make a motion? I move to approve agenda item 7.1 with the exception of eliminating the funding element on the high impact fund of Clearwater Running Festival, but leaving its name and title on the list.
Is there a second?
So before we second it, I want to say something too. I do like the time and place idea, as well as the licensing idea that the mayor proposed. So so you kind of know for future where I would be coming from, something similar to that issue. So I will second the motion that's been presented by Councilmember Menino.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Okay, items 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4 are to be continued. Is that correct?
Yes, items 7.2 and 7.3 are being continued to June 20, and 7.4 is being continued to a date uncertain unless there are residents present to speak on any of those items. I would just need a motion to continue.
So anyone here to speak to item 7.2, 7.3, or 7.4? Okay, hearing none.
I'll make the motion to continue to the later dates.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we'll move to item 8.1 on the agenda.
Mayor, 8.1 is second reading for ordinance. I'll proceed to read that by title. So we have ordinance number 9758-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, making amendments to the Community Development Code by amending Article 2 zoning districts, Division 1, Low Density Residential District, LDR, Division 2, Low Medium Density Residential District, LMDR, Division 3, Medium Density Residential District, MDR, Division 4, Medium High Density Residential District, MDHR, Division 5, High Density Residential District, HDR, Division 7, Commercial District C, Division 8, Tourist District T, Division 10, Office District O, Division 11, US 19 District, US 19, Division 12, Institutional District I, and Division 13, Industrial Research and Technology District, IRT, by amending Article 3, Development Standards, Division 1, Access Management Standards, Division 2, Accessory Use Structures, Division 8, Fences and Walls, Division 9, General Applicability Standards, Division 12, Landscaping, Tree Protection, Division 14, Parking and Loading, Division 18, Signs, and Division 21, Temporary Uses, by amending Article 4, Development Review and Other Procedures, Division 2, General Procedures, Division 8, Traffic Impact Study, and Division 9, Concurrency and Mobility Management, by amending Article 8, Definitions and Rules of Construction, Section 8-102, Definitions, by amending Appendix B, US 19 Zoning District and Development Standards, Division 3, Subdistrict Standards, by amending Appendix C, Downtown District and Development Standards, Division 2, Regulating Plan, Division 3, Character District Standards, Division 6, Building Design Standards, and Division 8, Flexibility, certifying consistency with the city's comprehensive plan and proper advertisement, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Could you repeat all that one? Just kidding. Anyone here from the public desire to speak to item 8.1? Okay. Council discussion on item 8.1. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 8.2.
8.2 is ordinance number 9759-24 before the council on second reading. An ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, annexing certain real property located on the northeast corner of Brookside Drive and Beverly Circle North, whose post office address is 1239 Brookside Drive, Clearwater, Florida, 33764, together with certain abutting right-of-way of Beverly Circle North into the corporate limits of the city, and redefining the boundary lines of the city to include said addition, providing an effective date.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to item 8.2? Seeing none, is there any discussion by the council? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 8.2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 8.3.
8.3 is ordinance number 9760-24. Ordinance number 9760-24, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the city to designate the land use for certain real property located on the northeast corner of Brookside Drive and Beverly Circle North, whose post office address is 1239 Brookside Drive, Clearwater, Florida, 33764, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as residential low, RL, and preservation, P, providing an effective date.
Anyone here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 8.3? Seeing none, is there any council discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 8.3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Item 8.4.
8.4 must be why everyone has joined us this evening from the public. 8.4 is ordinance number 9761-24. I know this is what everyone's waiting for. An ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, amending the zoning atlas of the city by zoning certain real property located on the northeast corner of Brookside Drive and Beverly Circle North, whose post office address is 1239 Brookside Drive, Clearwater, Florida, 33764, upon annexation into the City of Clearwater as low-density residential, LDR, and preservation P, providing an effective date.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 8.4? Any council discussion? Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve item 8.4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. At this time, we'll move to item 9 on the agenda, citizens to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. This time is there, and if you want to speak, as we said before, please fill out a comment card so that we have your name and address should we want to reach back out to you.
I'm Mr. Haluba, and I'm glad to see Mr. Wallach here tonight. Have a safe drive back to Pasco County. First Amendment is the cornerstone on which American democracy is built. The First Amendment protects 5 fundamental freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom to petition government regarding any grievances that a citizen may have. I'm going to petition this city council this evening to get rid of Rule 15. Rule 15 is clearly a violation of these protected rights under the American Constitution. And not at least revising these rules is an affront to our American democracy. Hear, hear.
Anyone else desire to speak to an issue that's not on the agenda tonight?
Ready? Mr. Wallach?
Mr.
I
Taylor,
appreciate you
Mr.
being-
Taylor,
Oh,
you're
my name is-
addressing the council, so. You can look at us and talk about whatever you want
Okay.
to talk, but the point is you're
No,
addressing.
no problem. Can you
Yeah,
reset
and I
my time
appreciate
because
you
you're talking to
helping
me
us.
and you're taking my time? Please? Can you reset it, please?
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you. Mr. Wallach, thank you for being here today, buddy. I appreciate it. Slaughter, pay attention to me, man. They can give me their attention, and you can't. Can you address this, Mr. Mayor? Can you address him right
Mr.
now?
Taylor, you have something to say?
I
please
do
say
have,
it.
I'm saying it right now. Dude, this guy's
Is-
being so disrespectful, and he's told me straight to my face that he will always ignore me, no matter what I have to say.
Look, I've listened to every word you said, and I will.
I'm not saying you, I'm saying him. Look at him, dude.
we'll
Look,
talk
he's
with
in
the
his
council.
book, and I've watched him this entire meeting on his computer. This is not okay. This is a complete disrespect. But anyway, we'll get on to the next part.
There you go.
Okay. Mr. Margolis, you were like, hey, we can just, we should just not pay for these 100 parking spots, right? We've done the records request. We know that you've paid 1.25 for 100 parking spots and have lost almost, from the records I've got, I only got them from 2016 to today. And you add the 400,000 and change that you've lost in these parking spots. I've run resorts as a executive chef. I'm a manager. In any one of these managers, if they have been complicit in losing $60,000, $40,000, or anybody has ever lost that type of money in my restaurant, you know what I would do with them? I'd fire them. And then, I've got some whistleblowers here, and I got people talking to me and giving me, and I hear, I'm sorry to say this, I'm actually not sorry to say this, but Ms. Poirier, I hear you own a condo because you said it yourself about the whole parking lot. You're like, oh, I live there. And Mr. Harris, she said she lived there too. But the funny thing is that's not her homestead. If she doesn't live in Clearwater, how does she hold that seat? How does she hold that seat? Right? That's part of your charter. That's part of being somebody of this dais, is that you have to live here. Am I wrong or am I? Of course I'm not wrong. It's like I don't do my homework sometimes. I'm not the brightest guy. I'm a YouTuber that drives 4 hours to come here, and to Slaughter, dude, you keep making my YouTube. The last video I put out in you, I made $400. Don't talk to me. I'm speaking. That's going to be the end of that, dude. I'm tired. Every time I come here, and this is going back to Unk's days, You don't, trust me, man, don't press me, dude. I'm not the guy. I'll keep coming back here and keep making a mockery of this friggin' city. And I don't even live here. So keep doing what you're doing. And slaughtering
Next speaker who wishes to speak on an item not on the agenda.
Hi, I'm Tony Tello, 520, 522, and 528 Cleveland Street, representing the District Downtown Merchants Association as well as my three businesses. After we had our first meetup with all the merchants that were able to come, I found it that a lot of their concerns mirrored my concerns when I first came up here and spoke. There was a lot of distrust and passion in the community, but ultimately concern about how they felt that they were being targeted and being treated as a second-class citizen to the beach. I know I brought up a comment not too long ago about the signs, and Mike Delk has been, as well as Vicky and Ann Lopez, have been tremendous helps to me, but that's only to me. The merchants feel that a lot of those policies, again, like I spoke previously, make us feel like we have to jump through hoops to make us feel like we're a live community. And it was about a 2-hour conversation. I want to be honest with you guys. About an hour of it was about the signs and about how we have city officials walk by and eat lunch at Downtown Pizza, but the codes are very strict and being unfairly targeted on our downtown blocks. While the beach, we walked down there with, went to go visit some places in downtown and on the beach, and we saw that, well, they were much more lenient there. And if we want this downtown to grow and we want to give these merchants voices, which I'm here to try to do, they need to be heard and to feel part of the community. And I just want to express that. The second point that I want to talk about is, like we were saying previously, we're going to try to take a more active role in uniting the downtown merchants so that they have a voice, so that they can do events that suit them. And I want to be an advocate to you guys to be a voice for the merchants, because sometimes things get lost in the weeds that are like Menino, and like I've heard you guys say before, the events that are held are great events, but not necessarily advantageous to businesses. And we want to grow the businesses. So the inputs of the merchants, not small, large, medium like myself, all are all important, and those are what truly build the community. And remember, these are merchants. They're all people who want to be here, have their families here. If they don't have them here, they're close, but they invested their fortune and their life into this community. So let them help you guys develop this community. Thank you guys.
Next speaker regarding an item not on the agenda.
Hello, Council. My name is Casey Coleman. I live on the area of Drew and Myrtle. I wanted to speak about, I know that Drew Street is on the agenda, but there is something that I feel has not been taken up, and it is affected by that part, in that the new power poles have been placed into the sidewalk in many places, and there is not an alternative really to get around them. And I know that this is really like, it's the power company's problem, but it's also the city's problem, because in some places you cannot get a baby stroller around the power pole. And it's inside my neighborhood, but it's also directly on Drew. And this is a bit of a problem because it's not safe to have a bicycle on Drew Street. It's not safe to also walk on Drew Street. You don't want to walk anywhere in the street. But power poles have been placed in such a way that there is no way to get around them except to go into the street or dismount or pick up a baby and go around perhaps on the street side, which is not safe at all. So I don't know, I know that it's a very odd place as far as like how logistics work on, you know, the city versus the power company and things like that, but placing a power pole on the sidewalk, that's a public right of way. Like, people are supposed to be able to walk on the side. So I also believe that, you know, with the Drew Street thing, there's no modification occurring there on the Drew and Myrtle intersection. Maybe a dedicated turn lane, but I did not see that on the final changes, that would be great if there was a dedicated turn lane, as a lot of accidents occur
Yeah,
from
well,
right or left.
That's getting into the other.
That's gonna be
agenda
reviewed?
item,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So you're
Yeah, but
welcome to come
basically,
back
yeah,
at the end,
yeah, the power pole thing is not something that has
sure.
come up at all, and that's a new thing that's been occurring in present
Understand.
time. All right, that's it, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker on an item not on the agenda.
Hi again. I'm Jennifer Harding, 2165 Briarway Drive, and I'm just here again to talk about the trees. I just want to start by thanking you all so much for the meeting on Monday. I appreciate all the work that you've done on our behalf, reaching out to Duke Energy, coming out to the neighborhoods, and I appreciate you inviting them here to ask questions. You asked a lot of great questions. But I just wanted to come today to revisit two statements that were made by Duke Energy on Monday. The first one was made by Anthony Cootie. He said, before we remove any tree, we would have a lot of conversations with the property owner before doing so. And then there was a statement made by Jeff Baker. He said, the conversation where trees were removed, we had permission from those homeowners. And I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that those statements are not true. I'm not sure if they were being purposely disingenuous or if they were just gravely misinformed, but we've been trying to work with Duke Energy about the situation since 2020. And just off the top of my head, I can think of 3 different homes where their quotes were disproven. So one of them is about 4 houses down from me. This happened in 2020. And Duke Energy was at their home in the morning, in the backyard, taking down a tree, and the resident was specifically telling them, I don't want this tree removed. The homeowner was unaware that it was happening, and Duke Energy removed the tree anyway. It happened again not too long ago, just down the street. A stump was left in the front yard of one of my neighbors, and they came home from work to find that their tree had been taken. And a third example is a friend of mine who's here tonight. Duke Energy was at her house about to remove her tree without her permission, and she had workers at her home who contacted her to let her know that that was happening. So I just wanted to make you aware that those 2 statements that Duke Energy made were not true. And I just wanted to keep this issue at the forefront of your mind because it's so important to me. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Julie Webster, and I live in Clearwater on Aller Drive, very close to the Hardings, and I want to thank you for giving us time to present somewhat of a rebuttal to Duke Energy's informational presentation on Monday. 2 topics I would like to address tonight are the process of notifying homeowners about removal of their trees, and the second one is the environmental impact of removing a tree. So let's start with the first one, December. We were notified about Duke Energy's plan to remove our laurel oak with a flyer that was left hanging on my door. This represented, we are removing your tree. And the explanation is unclear, as you can see if you read it. This is what was hanging on people's doors. January, 2 representatives from Duke Energy showed up at our door to discuss a date for removal. After several minutes of back and forth, it was clear that the decision had already been made and negotiations were off the table. I felt as if I was left without a voice. January, a little bit later on, the 2 Duke Energy reps showed up at my neighbor's house, and I joined the discussion about the removal of the Everett's trees. Again, it was a one-sided meeting pointing out the importance of maintenance on the power lines. They stated that our trees were on their easement and they did not need permission to remove them. At a loss for arguments, we asked if we could come back, if they could come back in March. They agreed. We were hoping that we were buying some time so that we could put together a reasonable argument to save our trees. March, Duke Energy showed up with Mowbray's Tree Service, a service that is out of California. I was not at home, but we had a roofer doing some work. They asked the roofer to call me at school and get my permission to take my tree down. The roofer called me, and I said no. On a daily basis, Duke and the tree service roam through our neighborhood, knocking on doors. Is this their way of educating residents about the importance of managing easements? As an educator of over 30 years, education is about discussion, considering each side of a topic, and learning how to arrive at a reasonable conclusion. Duke's idea of educating their customers is to make them see things their way. Second point, trees play a vital role in reducing flooding by slowing down the flow of rainwater through absorption and reducing erosion. Flooding is a devastating reality in Florida during hurricane season, and we observe climate change. We need our trees now more than ever. Shade trees and shrubs, ground cover help cool this urban environment, and I'm out of time. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening again.
Our next speaker.
Brian Harding, 2165 Briarway Drive. You know us, we've been here. I do want to say thank you for all of your efforts with the Duke Energy meeting. I wasn't able to be here, but I did watch it streaming. And thank you for everybody who asked the hard questions that they danced around, really. And like my wife said, they were disingenuous with several of the things. And, you know, one of the NERC standards where there are 200 kilovolts and higher lines that they're trying to use that to kind of bully their way through our neighborhood. I've printed that whole 50-page document about NERC today. I haven't gone through all of it yet, but it's kind of confusing. But just the impact of the trees alone, we had our neighbor that had I think it was probably a 50-foot high sweet gum tree that we hated because it has these monkey balls you step on in your bare feet and you send you through the roof. And it loses all the leaves in the wintertime and stuff. So we hated this tree. We wanted it gone anyway. One of the big branches fell off and we're like, you know, okay, get rid of it. Well, I'm so sorry that they did because it shaded our whole front lawn. And the impact of that one single sweet gum tree, you know, disappearing from our neighborhood has made it so bad. Our whole front lawn is now burned by the sun, and we're gonna have to kind of resod everything because of that one tree. And it's just, that's one tree. They wanna take 4 oaks out of our backyard. And that's just, you know, we're just still trying to keep this up in front of you guys, so, and keep doing your hard work, and I appreciate that. We would love to have a meeting with actual Duke people where we can talk to them and see, you know, what their reasons are for, you know, taking down these trees. Is it just cost effectiveness for them, or is it actually endangering their lives? You know, I want to see those LiDAR studies that they're showing. What is wrong with our trees? Thank you.
Our next speaker.
My name is Holly Pope. I live at 1441 South Hibiscus Street, Clearwater. And I want to bring up Airbnbs. According to the code, I talked to Ms. Green and the code enforcement, a short-term rental is a month. I have, right behind me, an Airbnb that sleeps 14 people. I have double glazed windows. They wake me up in the middle of the night. The police have better things to do than for me to call them about the noise level. I want to know how they got this in my neighborhood. There are 3 within 6 houses. The 2 quiet ones are wonderful. I don't care what they do. But this particular party house sleeps, as I said, 14. I want to know if they're paying taxes on the house. Are they getting homestead exemption? This is owned by an LLC out of Texas. Now, you just had a bunch of people in here for low cost and affordable housing. That house went for over $600,000 in a neighborhood that is over 70 years old. I moved here 40 years ago. I bought my first house. I was so happy. I finally had roots. I'm being driven out of my own house because once I've been woken up, I am up. So some days I'm up 20 hours or more. I'm very frustrated. I've already put in a formal complaint. After doing that, I had 2 of the owners or the residents, whatever you want to call them, walk by my house 4 times and stop. I felt threatened. I shouldn't feel threatened in my own home. I pay my taxes, and I'm beside myself. I can't afford to move. I shouldn't have to move. My father lived right behind me. And I can tell you, as a veteran of 3 wars, he wouldn't have put up with this. We have a beautician in the neighborhood. She had to go through and have a petition in order for her, as a single mother, to have a 1-chair salon. And now we sleep 14 people in a home as a party house. Now, I can't handle this. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
May I give this to you?
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Next speaker. Yeah.
Council, I'm still Bill Johnson. A couple weeks ago, after the last council meeting, I was invited to attend a board meeting in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's a beautiful historic town. Tourism is their biggest industry. The place is vibrant. I posted some pictures on Facebook. They have good signage. They have pubs and streets and restaurants on the main street and every side street all throughout the downtown grid. But one of the reason I was there was for a Scenic America conference, and during that conference, they talked to us about undergrounding power lines. When I looked at the workshop that you had on Monday, they were all just talking about protecting their wires. They weren't talking about being a partner with the community. They weren't talking about investing in resilience. They weren't talking about the $5 billion that the federal government had set aside for undergrounding power lines. And I was hopeful. I thought I had heard Mr. Slaughter saying that there would be a public meeting where representatives of Duke would be available to have a dialogue with members of the public. And I'd especially like to talk about undergrounding, and especially undergrounding in an area like along Myrtle, which is in the middle of a city that hopefully sometime we're going to have some more downtown housing along that street, and it's not appropriate to have power lines like that. St. Pete doesn't have them, so please continue your discussion. Many of you may ask good questions on Monday. Thank you.
Our next speaker. Yeah.
Tricia Kirby, 1111 Spencer Avenue. Once again, same topic on the trees. I want to note that there is a proposed rate increase in 2025 of 19.6%. That's on our electric bills of the monthly base rate increase. I didn't know about this until this week when I was on a phone call and being informed. That's $820 million increase in Florida, and I believe I heard them say $2 billion nationwide because it's happening everywhere. Duke had 9 times the complaints of Florida Power and Light, which is the state's largest utility. I also want to pause for a moment to acknowledge each one of you who did ask good questions on Monday. I appreciate it. I also was under the mistaken impression that this was a town hall and there would be dialogue, but I was wrong. wrong. It was just listening to them tell us why they're going to cut our trees, and we should be totally fine with that, which we're not. Since 2020, Duke Energy has raised the rate per customers more than 40% per kilowatt hour. 40%, and they're going up another 20%. That is your bills, everybody. And they're paying out 11% back to their shareholders. I will go back to this again. St. Pete is looking for possibility of doing a municipality-owned utility. I hope we are doing the same thing. We should also be partnering up with all the other cities in Pinellas County and seeing when their contracts expire and how we could create like a group effort there. I would like to see, I still want an answer to this question. I want an example from Duke. Since they claim that the trees are the problem, I would like to see them explain and show an example of how many times a large tree has come down and taken down one of those transmission poles. Because I don't know about you, I've seen those poles. They are gigantic. They're gigantic. So how many times? The data. I want to see the data. I want to know how many trees they're planning on cutting, how old they are, how big they are, and again, they keep not giving us this information, and we have a right to ask for it as citizens, and we have a right to ask for you all to represent our viewpoints here. Oh yeah, the hearing next week, June 12th, 6 p.m., Pinellas County. It's the County Extension Center, Parks and Conservation Center, it's called now. 12520 Almerton Road, Largo. That's the Florida Public Service Commission. They're doing public hearings where you can comment for public feedback about the rate increase and how you feel about that. Lastly, I have a picture. That's Sir Robert Swan. He's an explorer. He walked to both the North Pole and the South Pole, and I met him at an event. And he said, the greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. And I just want to comment when the people on Monday said there were people there who didn't have an active interest in the issue, like they didn't have a tree in the fight. And I believe they were referring to people like me. And I want to say, I think it's a good trait that I care about the community, even though I don't directly have a loss coming out of this situation. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here from the public that wishes to speak to an item not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to item 10 on the agenda, City Manager Reports, 10.1, North Beach Update.
Evening, Mayor, council members, Marcus Williamson, Public Works Officer. So we have been actively working out there. Some people had noticed we had pulled the 4 pumps that were out there, the temporary pumps, and to apologize, I was out. I did not get a note out since I was out of town. And we've now replaced them with 8 temporary pumps. So the point was, we're going into hurricane season. We wanted to increase our coverage throughout North Beach. Again, those are separate laterals. So we wanted to work to get pumps out on more of those laterals that are out there. We also have the contractor that installed some of the tidal valves out there. They're back out there. They're making some corrective actions to those tidal valves now so that we can make sure some of those are installed. There are still a couple of the laterals that don't have tidal valves, so we are working to put them on. Those valves do help, so we want to get them on all the laterals out there. We've started the engineering effort for the permanent pump stations. So we've had that initial kickoff, so that will start to pick up steam. We'll work through with the regulators, make sure we understand what's going on. Again, that project is probably 18 to 24 months out to completion for those permanent pump stations. Did just also want to comment, I know we talked North Beach, but we are looking at the whole city. So it's not just North Beach. We're continuing to work throughout the city. We know we've got a number of challenges. So while I'm briefing North Beach, I just wanted to assure everyone we are looking throughout the city. So with that, I'll pause for any questions.
Questions from the council? I do have one. I mean, we're getting heading into the rainy season. And a lot of the flooding last year was just during heavy rains. It wasn't hurricane related. So I'm assuming we feel like, I know we closed the gap in the seawall there at the north end of North Beach, but do we feel like we're in a much better place to respond to heavy rain?
We are. So we're in a lot better. The conditions when the tides when we're getting the high tides and we get a heavy rain, that's when we're gonna see some of it backing up a little. Again, those pumps will help. It'll relieve some of that pressure. And as soon as the tide goes down, you'll see the system empty a lot faster. So it'll really depend on the intensity and the duration of some of those storms, how much those pumps can keep up with it. So we'll be in a lot better shape, but we don't want people thinking that there won't be any issues out there. It's a lot of water to move based on what the rain events are. And again, it's when that tide is up, that's when the challenge is out there.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
City Manager, any other report to make tonight?
No, but I would just like to make a comment about, just to correct the record for the council and for our residents and regarding my employment contract. So I am in compliance with my employment contract. I do reside in Clearwater by definition, that is explained in the contract. I understand that for some members of the public that try to look for that, because my address and my family's address is protected, that information is not easily available. But we do have it in writing from the property appraiser's office that I have complied, and that information is in both the legal department and in the HR department.
And it's protected because you have a first responder in your family.
And from my HR career as well.
Yeah.
That is correct. That's all.
Okay, with that, we move to item 11 on the agenda, City Attorney reports. Do you have any report tonight?
Nothing additional, sir.
Okay. And then we move to item 12.1. That is to move the July 18, 2024 council meeting to Monday, July 15, 2024 at 3 p.m. and waive the city council rule and order of business on July 15th, 2024. We talked about this Monday. That still allowed me to attend a national meeting. And so if there's any further discussion on that, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve agenda item 12.1.
Second?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to. Moved and seconded that we approve agenda item 12.1. Is there anyone here from the public that desires to speak to item 12.1?
I'm Kathleen Beckman. Good evening. I would caution you about approving this agenda item for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is a pleasure trip for the mayor to go to the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee that starts on Thursday. And so he's wanting to move the meeting to Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And there are two reasons why I think you should not do that. Number one, it's a pleasure trip. It's a choice. And we have 4 members of the council that can do business. We have a vice mayor that can carry on. When you move it to Monday, you eliminate the work session where residents get to hear your discussions and your understanding of items that are on the agenda, and then they can process that over 3 days before and communicate with you before you take a vote on a Thursday evening. When you don't have the council meeting on Thursday evening, it doesn't allow residents to do that. And then I would say, if you're going to move it to Monday, at least wait until 6 o'clock p.m. because it's difficult enough for people to get to a work session at 1 o'clock or 1:30. And you would suspend that council rule that says public hearings happen after 6 p.m. I don't think you should do that. If you must move it to Monday, wait until 6 o'clock to allow more people who are working during the day to attend the meeting. Thank you.
Does anyone else here from the public desire to speak to item 12.1?
I'm back. All right, you want to switch it and do whatever? How about this? We'll make a deal, right? My birthday is on July 21st. I know it's a Sunday and it might affect you, whatever. But let's have the council meeting on my birthday, and that way when I come back here, we can all enjoy my birthday, and you can be like, oh, happy birthday to Mike, happy birthday. How about the 21st? I mean, you just want to switch things and make it inconvenient for everybody else. Let's convenience me today. And let's think about the 21st. I mean, most of y'all look like y'all have a really nice tan. Y'all been hitting the beach. Let's take a Sunday afternoon off, or Sunday later after you get done with the beach, you can come back here and have a council meeting. But that's all I got. I hope you can do it on the 21st. It's my birthday. I'm gonna be 45 years old. Can I get a happy birthday in July? Slaughter, are you gonna give me a happy birthday in July? Come on,
Anyone else here desire to speak to item 12.1? Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Move to item 12.2.
Affirm or rescind the FDOT Drew Street project.
Do we have a presentation on this tonight, or are we just talking about it?
No, sir.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak to item 12.2 on the agenda?
Hello, still Casey Coleman. I wanted to speak on this because there's quite a bit of confusion on what actually is being approved on this. The last date I had to pull off of ABC Action News. I like the Forward Pinellas plan, which mostly turns it into a two-lane road with a center turn lane that can be used for emergency vehicles. But it looks like there's going to be no major modifications to most of the road. We'll be retaining the four-lane road at its narrowest point, going from Highland to Keene, which I drive a fairly large truck for my business, and just getting down the road in like a large vehicle that's not even like a semi or anything like that, just a large vehicle, if somebody wiggles in one lane, I've sometimes had to clip the curb in order to avoid getting hit by somebody who's not paying attention. But it seems to be the case that there's going to be no major lane modification, and I would recommend that you use the Forward Pinellas plan, which would actually improve traffic speeds, in my opinion, because simply dropping the speed limit is not going to limit the actual speed that people are driving. It'll just result in more tickets. So that is my opinion on the matter, and I've given a lot of thought and consideration to it, and I've run it against what Forward Pinellas is doing. Forward Pinellas pays attention to strong towns and other such urban design. And I really think that the council should consider modifying those dangerously narrow lanes, and I think that it will actually positively affect the traffic as well. And that is my opinion on the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening again. Kathleen Beckman. To the mayor, council, and city leadership and staff, thank you for the very important work you do every day. I appreciate your time and interest over the last 2 weeks to figure out how you all can get to an approval of the $20 million federally funded Drew Street Safety Plan. If approved tonight at 30% design stage, I hope that you will request or provide regular public updates similar to the updates the public is given on North Beach infrastructure improvements at each council meeting, on the progress of the design, including the approval from SwiftMud. It's imperative that you schedule community meetings to inform and collaborate with residents on the ongoing design process. There are hundreds and hundreds of people who care about improving the hazardous conditions on Drew. You've gotten petitions. Over 200 people have signed these petitions, business owners on Drew, residents throughout the city. Have signed these petitions in the last 2 weeks indicating their support of the original Drew Street Safety Plan. People care about Drew Street and reducing crashes and fatalities, which, by the way, are far more frequent per number of vehicles on Drew than on Gulf to Bay. According to FDOT data, which was recently shared with you all, Osceola to Keene has a crash rate of 11.67 per million vehicle miles traveled versus Gulf to Bay's 8.57 per million vehicle miles traveled. This means a person is 36% more likely to get into a crash on Drew than on State Route 60. When we look at fatal crashes and serious injuries, a person is twice as likely to be in a fatal or serious injury on Drew Street compared to Route 60. But as we know, statistics and studies can be easily dismissed and substituted by I feel and I think. I hope that each of you will keep your promise articulated at Monday's work session that you will be committed to instituting immediate safety measures to slow down traffic on Drew, especially in the critical section between Betty Lane and Keene. This is densely residential. There are dozens of driveways and crossroads. The lane width is substandard, and yet you refuse to follow FDOT's recommendation to widen lanes here. Residents here are heartbroken that you are marginalizing their concerns and their over 7-year engagement with shaping the FDOT proposed and studied safety plan. You have work to do to earn the trust and respect of your constituents. FDOT said on Monday there are many unknowns. Please keep us informed of the discovery of any problems or hurdles and progress on the project, including the new cost to Clearwater taxpayers, perhaps $13 to $15 million, a number you conveniently did not share or discuss at Monday's work session. Please keep this continuing work in the sunshine. Thank you very much.
Next speaker.
This is my first time. I'm not nervous.
Just introduce yourself.
My
It's
name
easy
is
after that.
Barbara.
Yeah, you just share with us.
I've lived in this area for 4 years. I've driven on Drew 3 times because I value my life. I actually love books. I'm glad we're in a library. I was looking up a word the other day in a dictionary. I looked up the word stress. Showed a photograph of Drew Street. I want to read you a poem. Drew Street for all. Please heed this call. Drew Street for all. Can you imagine driving your child to school on what should have been a wonderful day, but then a bump, a sideswipe, a crash takes it all away? Safer roads are the right of everyone, father and daughter, mother and son. From Keene to Osceola, 30 more seconds wouldn't hurt a fella. When narrow lanes cause more hurt and pain, not to mention the rain. Make use of these federal funds before it all disappears. It's taken professional planning and design of over 10 years. Human lives are at stake. This upgrade would save many tears. A smooth ride on Drew is what we look forward to. Be heroes and answer the call. Drew Street for all. Thank you.
Could you share your comments? Thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah, you're missing cards there in the back. Hello, Brian Beckman, representing Suncoast Sierra Group. Hello, council and city staff. Thank you for your consideration of taking advantage of federal dollars and FDOT's and their willingness to propose options to improve safety. But I want to highlight the critical need for continuous transparency and collaboration with the community going forward. As you know, this is an extremely important topic for the community for many reasons. It was important to the city and to the council 7+ years ago, and the public was kept informed and brought into the process by the city and by FDOT and by Ford Pinellas for the next 6 years. That transparency and public involvement abruptly stopped about a year ago when the local state senator and representative inserted themselves into the process and brought the project to a halt. Please keep the project moving forward and in the sunshine for the public to be kept well informed and collaborate with residents on the solutions and the costs. Again, the costs matter not only from the money that would be provided federally, but what it will cost the city. The community deserves it. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
You guys just can't get rid of me, I tell you what. All right, like I said, I got whistleblowers and all this stuff, and I actually watched the work session, I think it was 2 months ago, where you actually said you were gonna make some phone calls and blah, 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 and obviously the last work session, when they came back and had a revised thing, it was because, I'm just speculating, this is only alleged, that whatever conversations were had with whoever was spoken to, they had to come back with another plan that was more your 2-lane road and whatever. If you lose 7 lives and 22 people get serious injuries where they're in a friggin' wheelchair for the rest of their lives or they get mangled to a point, when do you say, the federal government's like, hey, we want to do this for you. FDOT is telling you, we're going to give you the money, we're going to do the work. And then on the work session, when you were berating the 2 guys that were here, when I think it was you, Menino, and I think there was a couple of you that were berating these guys, and really, they're telling you, it would be like you trying to tell me how to cook French fries, and I've been a chef for 25 years. These guys, this is their job. And for some reason, you're like, oh, my feelings. This is what we're hearing from our constituents. I don't care about your constituents. I go off of facts and reality. The facts of this is people are dying, people are being severely injured, and it sounds like a lot of people at the last meeting came here specifically to say no. Say, we need this. But here, it takes me, the YouTuber, because this is all going up on my YouTube, The Armed Fisherman. You'll check it out. It's going to get 10, 15, 20,000 views, whatever it is. And this is not just for me, because I look at your Clearwater videos and I can see a couple hundred views. But whenever it hits my channel, it spreads to the masses. And that's what this is all about. That's the only reason I come here, is to help get a message out for the people that aren't here. Regardless of what country they come from. I have people from Australia, this, that, and the third, that watch this, and they can't believe what is going on. You have money coming from FDOT, and they're back here saying, if you don't want the $20 million, we'll sign this road off to you right now. They were like, hey, no problem. You don't want us to do this? We'll take our money somewhere else, and here's just put your signature on this, and the road becomes yours. And the reason you don't want to do it is because it becomes your problem. It becomes the city of Clearwater's problem to fix that road. They're giving you the money. You just don't, for some reason, somebody give me $20 million to see what I do with it.
Is anyone else here from the public that desires to speak to this agenda item?
Patrick Raftery once again. I'm still Patrick Raftery, but my leg's good now. I'm a little bit confused by this item, quite frankly. This item was on the agenda at the last council meeting, but before we began discussing it, and by the way, I was absolutely in favor of the FDOT's proposal and the presentation they made with the new locations advised by the city staff. The mayor began speaking in advance to say that he wanted to look at some alternatives, he wanted to hear something different, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, well, that might be the direction we're going to go on this one, because it was obvious that the original plan did not have the support of the new council, if you will. So I listened to the work session on Monday where the FDOT people came forward with a proposal within a 2-week time frame, which I thought was outstanding as an alternate to be considered, since the original proposal probably would not be accepted. So I'm a little bit confused about this item. I'm going to assume it is to decide what they would like to do with the original FDOT proposal, that is to have the turn lanes to it, that's not going to happen. And I'm assuming we are talking perhaps about the alternate proposal that was made. So I'll address my comments to that. This has been a long-standing request by the residents of Drew Street for a safety issue. It began 7 years ago. The alternate proposed by the FDOT at the work session on the 3rd of June needs to be acted upon. The last council had a path set for us, which is not going to be followed, not have your support. You are now responsible for the decision, and with that, you are now accountable for addressing the safety issue on Drew Street. The mayor has mentioned on a few occasions a safety concern for Gulf to Bay. I've been to many council meetings. I have never seen a business or resident from Gulf to Bay appear appeared before this council and complained about safety issues. I've heard a lot from Drew Street residents. So I'm going to suggest that you need to be focused on the safety issues, as you say you are with Drew Street, and you need to move forward on this project with a sense of urgency. This has been 7 years. We've not done anything except talk about it. I will close with the remarks of Mark Twain. Action does speak louder than words, just not as often. The time to act is overdue. There needs to be a sense of urgency. Collectively, you will now own this issue and address the safety concerns of the residents of Drew Street. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else here desire to speak to agenda item 12.2?
Good evening again, Rudy Michaelek, regarding this issue. I look at the item listing here which says to affirm or rescind the project. On Monday, we heard of an alternative motion put forward as an option to what could be a system put in place that's been in the works for 7 years. So my confusion is a little bit, are we here to simply affirm a project that may have any one of two different outcomes? Or are we here to say, gee, we don't really like any issue, we vote for no safety on the street? And so I'm just simply confused by the wording that's listed down here. As I commented to the mayor on Monday after listening to the alternative, it did seem that there were some very positive points to that program, which included being able to widen the intersection, if you would, to allow for a turn lane, a left turn lane, protected, while still having the 2 lanes of traffic going by it. It also gave an option to be able to adjust at different points in the roadway of 2.2 miles roughly, different types of width and lane usage in order to maximize safety concerns within those short-term corridors. So the option also appeared to have some very positive factors. During the point of talking about the original plan, a lot of concern was made about it's going to add all this time to our travel. Well, one of the options in the alternate plan is maybe we can cut down speeds. Well, if there's anything that's going to slow traffic and add to the time of transit, it should cut down speeds. So I just throw that as a side point to the issues being raised. Each of you have made the statement very clearly and very loudly that you believe and support safety is of primary importance to the citizens of Clearwater. And as a saying we used to have when I lived in Texas, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. So I encourage you, whichever plan you're looking at, whether it's the original FDT or the alternative, that I give you great thank yous for digging deep to find some options and alternatives. If you really mean safety, you can't just throw this baby out with the bathwater. Thank you.
Does anyone else here desire to speak to item 12.2 on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, council discussion. Or a motion, if someone wants to make a motion.
Just a quick question for clarification, because I had the same question when I saw the agenda. It just states affirm or rescind the FDOT Drew Street project, and it gives no direction as to which project, and we can sit here and assume
project is the one
that it's the
that they
alternative
presented.
that FDOT presented on Monday?
That's the project.
Okay.
That's what they're proposing.
Fair enough. What I've heard tonight, I've heard words, we're pleading for collaboration, urgency, and action. I think it'd be fair to highlight that we made a 2-week collaborative movement quickly and urgently to get to this point, to find what we believe in FDOT and Fort Pinellas believe is a resolution to this 7-year hiatus that we hear about. We've heard constant discussions and urges of safety. I think we all said on Monday that we firmly believe, FDOT and Ford Pinellas believe that this alternative concept addresses safety on Drew Street without a question. We've heard constant comments about don't lose the federal funding. We're not going to lose the federal funding, and we've been assured that. And we've also been begged for transparency, and I think we've been completely transparent in workshops and here tonight in our discussions. This entire process, though it's been short for some of us, this has all happened clearly in the sunshine for everybody. So I'm in support of this new alternative and concept. I think it addresses those very things that our citizens have been clamoring and discussing and begging us for. I commend all of you and staff. I commend FDOT as well as Ford Pinellas for the hard work that was put in the last couple weeks to get to this point, and I'm 100% in favor of moving forward and affirming this motion.
Councilmember Cott?
Yeah, looking at the attachment that has to do with this, I do believe it looks like we would have to decline the original proposal by FDOT and then make a second motion to approve a...
I don't think so.
Okay,
Just because.
That's why I'm asking.
it's fine. I was just looking at the attachment. It doesn't address the new proposal, so that's why I brought that up.
I agree with that.
Well, their proposal is what was presented on
Correct.
Monday.
I just want to be clear when we make a motion of which proposal we're
A
pushing
motion
through.
to approve, if it's either a motion for the original, but I think I hear discussion in terms of the alternate, so just a motion to approve the alternate plan presented at the work session is fine.
Just to be specific, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Chair?
So I'm in approval of this alternate plan. In regards to the extra or the added expense, perhaps I'm naive, but to be blunt, I always assumed that we were going to fix the infrastructure. This is an old street. And it would be the same as installing beautiful floors on your old home and not replace the copper pipes that are rusted. That road is old. I can't imagine the disruption and the expense and the resources put to a new road that eventually we're going to have to dig up and fix the infrastructure. We've seen through time what happens when we ignore the infrastructure, North Beach, Fort Harrison, and all that. So I always assumed that that expense was going to be there eventually, especially when I think of this is a big project, it's quite involved, it's going to be disruptive, it's going to be over a few years. I assumed that the infrastructure was always going to be a part of that option. Having said that, I am going to ask for a little bit of patience because I do want to make some comments, and I promise I will circle back to Drew Street. It has been it was very quick early on in my service as in this council that Clearwater is blessed to have a group of citizens that are very civic-minded and engaged and passionate. And I'm grateful for that. But there is the majority that are unable or unwilling to be as formally communicative, whether it's through email or citizens to be heard. And I understand that. As a young mother, there was no way that I could cope with performing well at work and raising a family with all the extracurricular activities and have the level of engagement needed to be involved in this capacity. But the voices of those who are not as vocal are not any less significant than those that are. And I really feel very passionately about that. Everyone's voice has equal value, whether you formally voice it or you don't. And this was very evident in the last election. In the last election, Drew Street was by far in the top 3 issues, so much so that all the candidates' views were publicly stated. And 2 incumbents used signage on Drew Street to communicate their stance. So this is a very important issue. But a pattern emerged that made me very uncomfortable. I found it very sad and disturbing. And it was very evident when I had a conversation with a young mother who was very concerned about the safety of Drew Street, but felt that the option presented at that time was not what she thought was going to work. When I encouraged her to communicate, she physically recoiled because she had a bad experience voicing those concerns and the retaliation that she received in social media. And I don't think that's fair. I think anyone has the right to have an opinion without being demonized or disparaged or attacked on social media, and not being accused of not, caring about her children. And I think that's a sad thing. So when I receive, and all of us receive emails, especially on this topic, from both sides, very passionate both sides, for different reasons, there's one thing that's consistent. Both sides always end the communication with, listen to the people, vote my way. Both sides feel that listening to those people or to them means that I'm listening to all the voters, and that's just inaccurate, right? One side will not be happy with the decisions to be made. But this decision on Drew Street lays heavily on my shoulders because I understand the ripple effect. I understand the implications of making the wrong decision. I've seen it. And I printed out a visual just to kind of bring home what I'm trying to say about the ripple effect. On this last Sunday's article, there was a picture here of pedestrian deaths. And the circle that I have is Gulf to Bay. And each one of those dots represents a lost life. Those lives are equal to any of those on Drew Street. And so it is not a light decision. What changes are we going to do to Drew Street that might affect Gulf to Bay and put more dots on that street? Because we represent every single life in Clearwater, not just those on Drew. And it brings a lot of weight. So I don't want anyone to think that this came lightly. And last but not least, I implore everyone in the future, as passionate as you are in the next topic or the next issue, to communicate effectively and in a responsible and professional way. It is not effective to be combative and antagonistic. Receiving a postcard like this one, where it says, "Dear elected official, this is a postcard from your boss." That is not entirely accurate, is it? You're one of 118,000 bosses. And then in red, pay attention or at least pretend to. In what circumstances do you think that you're going to be heard better by sending antagonistic messages like this? So be passionate, be involved, but communicate effectively.
Councilmember Cotton?
So something that I ran on during the campaign was infrastructure. I was heavy on that and making sure that we're investing in that and that tax dollars are being spent wisely and efficiently. And with the new proposal that we have from FDOT, that money that the city is going to have to put forward, to Councilmember Teixeira's point, for infrastructure, those pipes, thankfully, I got some information from city staff who worked really quickly to get me this information, but our Drew Street sewer pipes and infrastructure is 50 years old. So it's going to be needed to be replaced near its end of life very soon. So that's just money well spent, in my opinion, going towards that infrastructure and making sure that those needs are met for the community and that resiliency. And that's one of the other reasons why I'm more adamant to support this new proposal from FDOT and put taxpayer dollars wisely to use for us in our city as a whole.
Vice Mayor Alberton, you have anything?
Yeah, I got a few things.
That's fun.
Okay, so for almost 2 decades, people have been complaining about the dangers of Drew Street. Speeding narrow, traffic lanes, sidewalks that are too close to traffic, and crashes. The 2-mile stretch of Drew Street that spans from Myrtle to Saturn Avenue goes through several historic residential neighborhoods. Homes line both sides of the road. It should have never been designed as a 4-lane road through these neighborhoods. Let me be perfectly clear for the record. I support the findings by FDOT and think lane reductions are the best way to enhance the safety of Drew Street. I voted for the lane reduction in 2018, and in 2018, it was the public that picked 3 lanes. It wasn't city, it wasn't FDOT. We had a lot of public support for that particular design. Then it went to FDOT. The alternate plan enhances safety in the areas where fatalities have occurred. However, it does nothing for the road east of Betty Lane to Saturn Avenue, where we still have accidents caused by speeding, narrow, non-compliant lane widths, and left-hand turn issues. I will vote for the alternate plan to keep this project alive because it appears I'm the lone vote on the lane reduction. However, I'd like to include some speed management in the area, in this area of Drew Street. That's from basically east of Betty Lane to Saturn. And I think all the council, because we kind of discussed it the other day, I think everybody really wants safety here. And FDOT said that they're at 20% design. They are going to go ahead and see what they can do for this area. This is imperative to me. This is the area that concerns this neighborhood the most. I'd like to see non-synchronized light timing. So don't blow through this 2-mile stretch with the lights all going green as you're going. Make them non-synchronized so you have a red light, slows traffic down, and starts up again. I'd like to see the speed limit lowered to 35. I'd like to see a big step up in enforcement. And Fort Pinellas told me that the state may even fund targeted enforcement. You know, there's no way for that neighborhood north of Drew Street to get across Drew Street to Crest Lake Park. A lot of people like to go to the park in that neighborhood. It's a great park. So the only way they can do it and cross safely is at Highland or Saturn because those are the 2 lights. We don't have any pedestrian crossings in between. I'd like to see a flashing pedestrian crossing either at Crest Avenue or North Lake Drive, which is almost center, and those 2 roads lead right into the park. That will help slow traffic down if they know that there's a flashing pedestrian crossing coming up. And also compliant sign warning for large vehicles that are entering narrow lanes. I know if you have 2 big trucks, and the lady even came tonight and said she has a big truck, you get them side by side at Duncan where the traffic lanes are 9.5 feet, they're not going to have mirrors left because the mirrors hang over 9.5 feet on both lanes. So we need to have signage there to say, warning, narrow lanes coming up. So I think that from talking to FDOT, and I think they can incorporate a lot of this into that. I want the people in that neighborhood to know we're concerned about that, and we're going to press to try to get as much speed management in that area taken care of. But this project goes all the way from Osceola to 19. This is a big project, and we need it all the way down. So to keep this thing going, I'm gonna vote for the alternate plan.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With that, I'll just weigh in a little bit. I've said this repeatedly, but for me, and I know for all the council and the city manager, city attorney, this has never been about us working together to improve the safety of Drew Street. It's never been about that. It is about the community feedback that Councilmember Teixeira shared earlier that I've said before was very overwhelming for me and my experience from throughout the community against lane elimination. So, but it's never been about finding ways to make Drew Street safer. We all agree on that, and I am committed, and I believe you've heard tonight the council is committed to doing all we can to make Drew Street safer. FDOT, I want to thank them. There's been a lot, as with things that are controversial, there's always information floating out there that's not accurate. FDOT was never and does not promote or advocate for lane elimination. They've told me that repeatedly. They told me that repeatedly. They told me that in the meeting 2 weeks ago when we were able to get to this alternative proposal. They do not advocate for lane elimination anywhere. They only do it when they're asked to do it by the local government, planning agency or municipality. So the lane elimination was never FDOT's idea. And so they were able to, revise the plan to help improve the safety of Drew Street without, in the most part, eliminating lanes. There is a portion that we are going to eliminate a lane between Myrtle and Osceola. That will be the gateway into the park, and that makes sense. There's also Pinellas Trail goes through there, and that's an appropriate area to eliminate a lane if we're going to. So that a bit of a compromise, but again, it's a long street, and we're just trying to do what we can to satisfy the needs of all of the citizens in Clearwater and work toward the common goal to make Drew Street safer. Our staff was asked, the city manager and I, when we met with FDOT and Whit Blanton, who's here from Fort Pinellas, and I also want to thank Whit and Fort Pinellas for your willingness to help us meet and work this out. Whit was very helpful, and FDOT, and I apologize to the FDOT guys for what may have been seen as rough treatment when they heard the work session. It was not about them. It was about just trying to figure it out and getting to the meeting, which we had, to come up with this alternative proposal. But in that, they shared with us, with the alternative plan, that there will be some utility movement that they can't pay for out of these funds that will be the part of the city. So our staff said that could be up to $12 million. That doesn't include what it would cost us to improve that infrastructure, those utilities. If we would have to go in there separate from this construction process and open up the ground to get down in there and do the work. It also doesn't, it doesn't take into account potentially upgrades that we were going to do eventually anyway with those pipes and those utility service that we're removing to just a little bit further out to widen the roadway. So the cost on a high end is $12 million, but again, it doesn't account for savings that we would have by doing this in conjunction with the improvements to Drew Street. Also doesn't take into account bigger pipes and some things that we might do to improve the service to our citizens. And I want to thank Fort Pinellas. We agree this is not about complete streets. Complete streets, and the concept is certainly appropriate, maybe in other places in the county, other places in Clearwater. But this particular street, we just didn't feel, the citizens didn't feel like lane elimination would work, would make traffic congestion worse, would cause problems on other streets. There was just, in my experience, was an overwhelming feedback. And as Councilmember Teixeira said, it was one of the top issues of the campaign, and I won overwhelmingly when it was clear, what my position was on. So with all that, I want to, again, thank the agencies for sitting down to come up with this alternative proposal. It will make Drew Street safer. The two intersections that a lot of the attention will be on are the two intersections where most of the accidents are happening on Drew Street. So the FDOT felt like it would make significant improvements and reduce significant number of crashes on Drew Street just by the work on those two intersections. And then we also widen it where we can, and we're open to looking at widening other places on Drew Street outside this proposal, because we want Drew Street to be not only safer, but an important east-west corridor for our community for years to come. So you have my commitment. I've said this on and on. I also feel good about our meeting a couple weeks ago with FDOT and Fort Pinellas. It's amazing what we can accomplish as a community when we sit down and we just talk about how to work together to make our community better. We could learn from that in a lot of different areas around our city, just sitting down and talking professionally And we did that, and there are other opportunities for us to work with agencies to do that as well. So I'm encouraged by that. I also want to say, Councilmember Teixeira, I'm glad you shared what you shared. All of us know that there's some public input that's very helpful. As I said earlier, we read everything that comes in, everything. And I know the others do too. Some of it, you know, when folks, you know, raise their voice and get a little rough, it's not really helpful. And everyone should recognize that we got a lot of issues that will come before this community. And civil exchange, civil discourse, that's always the best way for a community to work together. So I hope that we'll remember that going forward. And the last thing I want to say is, this is a different council. We have already disagreed, and Vice Mayor Albritton has shared tonight. He doesn't necessarily agree with the direction that the entire council is taking. But we don't take any disagreement on this dais personally. We will agree to disagree, and then we will move on professionally. We are not going to personally attack each other. We are going to work together. And that doesn't mean we always agree, and that doesn't always mean we will feel strongly about the positions that we take. But we will address every issue and disagree professionally. And that is different than what may have happened here in the past, but that is this council. And I'm confident that there will be the process of this council going forward. So with that, any other council discussion on this item? City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. So not to weigh in on the policy aspect of it, but just procedurally going forward. So what I'm hearing from the council is that it sounds like there's consensus in support of the revised plan that FDOT and Fort Pinellas presented at the Monday work session. As the council knows and as discussed, there may be city costs associated with that. If the council is in support of the plan that was presented on Monday, and if the council is supportive of the city contribution in furtherance of that plan, then my suggestion from a procedural level, so that way staff has clear direction, would be a motion in the following. And it doesn't have to be these exact words, but the gist of it would be a motion to approve the amended plan presented by FDOT and Fort Pinellas at the Monday, June 3rd work session, and also directing the city manager to create a capital plan to fund any required city commitment as part of the utility relocation. The reason I would suggest that phrasing specifically is because, first, it leaves the door open to the possibility that we may secure additional funding, right? There may very well be funding opportunities, whether through FDOT grants, through collaboration with our state delegation, et cetera, that present themselves along the way. So it would probably, on one hand, be premature to say that we are necessarily going to incur this full cost. But on the other hand, we do have to be prepared for it, so that way the city manager can plan for it on a budget level. The other reason I think that phrasing would be helpful is that because we are in budget season now in preparation for this coming fiscal year, this will give city staff time to start planning on a budget level. This may not have to be funded next year or not have to be funded all next year, but it's important to give the city manager as much lead time as possible so that she can do capital planning effectively. So my advice to the council, based on what I'm hearing, would be a motion to approve the amended plan presented by FDOT on Monday, June 3rd, and also directing the city manager to create a capital plan to fund any required city commitment to relocate the utilities. That's my procedural advice.
Good. Make a motion? Are you good with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I move to affirm the FDOT Drew Street alternative project that was presented on Monday, June 3rd at our work session. Also to allow the city manager to create a capital funding plan to budget for any future city commitments relative to the relocation of utilities in that project.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Okay. That will move to item 13 on the agenda, closing comments by council members.
Yep, so my closing comments, I had the privilege of going to the Clearwater Neighborhoods Coalition meeting this past week. I was invited there to speak. We had a large turnout with all the different neighborhood heads and organizations. It was great, but I really want to point out our neighborhood services team. So Samantha, Javante, and our new hire, Monica, did a great job. And, you know, you can see their passion for the city and for the neighborhoods that they service. And I was proud to see them and just be a part of this city where they work, and they have the vitality and vigor to make sure our neighborhoods are doing a great job and well taken care of.
Let's move to Chair.
So I'm part of the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and we hosted our 30th Future of the Region Awards, which was part of the two-day Resiliency Summit, and I'm very excited and happy to announce that Clearwater's Coachman Park and Imagine Clearwater won the Built Awards. So congratulations. I want to thank any person and everyone that was involved in Coachman Park, from the citizens who were advocates for it, from the staff and leadership. Thank you so much. It's a park that keeps on giving, winning a lot of the awards. Art Alliance is hosting an Inspired by Nature exhibit at the Downtown Library. The exhibit was featured in the Creative Pinellas Arts Coast magazine, did a great job. So thank you to the Art Alliance for doing that. I really enjoyed the Employee Appreciation Threshers event. It's always nice to mingle with everyone on the outside. And then the Historical Society is having a Clyde Butcher exhibit, Living Waters, which I attended the opening this week, and I really encourage everyone to go out there and check it out. Thank you.
Councilmember Menino.
No, I probably spoke long enough tonight, but I would like just to acknowledge Tony from downtown that shows up to just about every meeting, and he is so passionate about our community, and not just his business surviving and thriving, but he's passionate about the entire downtown district and every business down there and the families that run those. So I just I want to thank him and his family for the time, the commitment, the effort that they put in, the way he communicates and addresses us with full respect, and effective communication is appreciated. And I look forward, as a team in the city, continue to fight for him, the downtown businesses, and our entire downtown district.
Vice Mayor.
Well, you know, 2 weeks ago, last council meeting, I thought this Drew Street project was going to be voted down. In fact, I knew I was the only one going to carry support for it, and I wanted to thank the mayor for being mayorly and calling for a 2-week, you know, when nobody thought it could be done in 2 weeks, but the FDOTs, they came back up to the table, and I thank them immensely to coming up with their plan to keep the project alive, and thank all the rest of the council for their participation. I know everybody's very passionate. I wanted to just say one thing about a good friend of mine who passed away a couple of years ago. He was an ex-councilman here too. His name was J.B. Johnson, and J.B. had this saying that, to expound on what you said, he said, we can disagree without being disagreeable. And that just always stuck with me, because that's what we do. I mean, we can disagree as long as we're not disagreeable, and we get a lot of things done. So thank you for that.
Okay, with that, we'll move to closing comments by Mayor, and don't spend too much more time on it, but I do want to echo that it's, you know, the meeting with FDOT and Fort Pinellas just really, to figure all this out, and they both jumped on it, particularly FDOT, really put a lot of time into it over 2 weeks to get to where they were at and what we ended up approving tonight. And we talked in the meeting about not just Drew Street, we talked about other streets in Clearwater and how we can partner with FDOT and Fort Pinellas to make lots of roads going forward safer and better, and work on transportation, because it's obviously it's something we all hear about from our citizens is traffic congestion and traffic safety, and they have other ideas and other ways. So it was really important for me to have that relationship with FDOT and Fort Pinellas improve, because it's very important for us to have a very good relationship with them going forward. So I've already thanked them 2 or 3 times, but I want to thank them again for that. And I also want to, I didn't get a chance to really congratulate the young man who won the Florida League of Mayors thing here tonight, so I'm going to reach out to the family separately to do a little something for him. But we have so many great kids in this community, and fostering them and encouraging them to succeed like this young man did on a statewide basis, statewide competition. Came through Tampa International yesterday, just missed the National Spelling Bee champion from Tampa. For the second year in a row, the National Spelling Bee champion is from either Pinellas or Hillsborough County. And I missed him by about 30 minutes arriving there as I arrived. So we just have so many great youth in this community. Our challenge is to keep them here, is to make our living quality of life, our education system, those that they want to stay here and continue their careers here and build their lives here. But we have a lot to look forward to in Clearwater. And I was excited too to be on the dais with Mayor Castor, Mayor Welch, and EDC CEO Bill Cronin from Pasco County on Tuesday to talk about regional opportunities. CREW is a female real estate professionals organization. They had 650 folks there from all over Tampa Bay, but just to have a small opportunity to tell Clearwater's story, to show reflect the optimism we all have for Clearwater right now and the possibilities and how excited we are about the future of Clearwater. I really enjoyed that opportunity and look forward to other topics to do, because we do. You know, we've got challenges, and you heard some of them here tonight. We've got things like every city to work on, but we have so much opportunity. And I know this council is going to work really hard, and city attorney, all the city staff, to make this city the best it can possibly be. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting of the Clearwater City Council.